the Valley. Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 101.1 everywhere.
It's Tuesday, January 10th. Good morning. I am Damilola Onime. Right now in Ottawa, -9 with light snow showers. In Smith Falls, it is -8. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. The partial shutdown of the LRT continues this morning. While the transit system is not back to full operation, OC Transport, in a memo to City Council, says recovery of the 2 remaining immobilized trains is scheduled for this afternoon. OC Transport staff will meet with Radio Transit Maintenance for a full update and status of the repair work and what's left to be done in order for LRT service to be fully restored. Now, OC Transport also says once the tracks are cleared of the 2 immobilized trains, they will be tested to confirm for safety and reliability, and then line 1 can be successfully reopened. With the weather forecast for Ottawa and the Valley, here is City News weather specialist Denise Andriachi.
Sun and cloud across the region for the most part today. Pretty seasonal as well. Not as warm as yesterday. Afternoon conditions here in Smiths Falls around -5 and will be partly cloudy down to -11 overnight. Now, a few scattered flurries in the forecast for the Ottawa region tomorrow and late day snowfall Thursday into Friday. Now, temperatures are going to be hovering around the freezing mark for this system as it moves in. So we may see a bit of mixing. We'll keep an eye on that, but certainly 5 to 10 centimeters expected in the Ottawa region for Thursday and into Friday. For this afternoon, -7.
And after a month of hype headlines and high-profile media interviews, Prince Harry's memoir, Spare, has officially hit store shelves. City News reporter Jamie Pulfer joins us with what's been said about the tell-all book on the day of its release.
This bombshell book has already hit bestseller status, predicted to be one of the most popular of the year. But after all the TV interviews and leaks, what else is there? That question to Vanity Fair royal editor Katie Nicholl on GB News.
Because I know everything that's in it. Why would I buy it?
We've heard all the massive stories, and when I've gone through it, I can't find anything that anyone's missed. But for me, it's all the little details.
Shocking stories like a royal rumble, William physically attacking Harry, Camilla teaming up with the tabloids, all triggering a strong reaction from royal historian Sir Anthony Selden.
This is a real stinker. It's really bad for everybody. The palace are keeping quiet. That's really the only course that they can take at the moment.
Still so many questions. Will there be a reconciliation? Will Harry be invited to his father, King Charles's coronation in May? Jamie Pulfer, City News.
I am Damilola Onime. And for news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Connecting you and your community. This is the Sam Laprade Show on City News
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, happy Tuesday, everyone. I'm Sam Laprade. Thanks so much for spending time with us here on City News. We have a very busy show for you today. Coming up a little later, we're going to hear from Bruce Heyman. He is the former U.S. ambassador. We're going to be speaking about the Three Amigos Summit. We know Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is in Mexico. We're going to get some of that information from Bruce on what he thinks about, especially between U.S. and Canadian relations. We're going to be having a great conversation with him a little bit later. We're also going to speak with Sergeant Amy Gagnon from the Ottawa Police Service regarding the results from the Festival Ride program. They're not great, everyone. People still drinking and driving? I do not get it. Anyway, Sergeant Gagnon is going to join us a little bit later to talk about that. First up, John Fraser, interim party leader of the Ontario Liberal Party and MPP for Ottawa South. Hi, John.
Good morning, Sam. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Our first of many conversations, I'm assuming, into 2023. We know that you are the interim leader. We know Stephen Del Duca was your leader. Where are you heading, John?
Well, we're going to be into another leadership race in the coming years. We first off, we're going to have an AGM. All the parties going to get together on the 3rd and 4th of March this year in Hamilton, and at that meeting there'll be a decision about how we vote for the next leader, whether we're going to continue with the delegated convention or go to another system that's one member, one vote. So there's a number of variations. So that's the first thing that we have to do, to actually initiate that leadership race.
You've held the role of interim party leader a couple of times, John. Does that mean that you cannot put your name forward to be party leader?
Yeah, I made a decision not to take the interim role again and not to put my name forward in the leadership race because there's a lot of work that needs to be done to actually prepare for a leadership race. I thought that was the most important thing I could do to help our party and our members. And a leadership race is it's about electing a new leader. It's also about building up your party. Again in Ontario, and the way that you design that leadership race and the way that you prepare will help you continue to build your party and support throughout Ontario to put the new leader, whoever she or he is, in the best possible spot in the next election.
I had a conversation just before the holidays with MP for Ottawa Centre, and of course that's Yasser Natfi. And I had heard rumors that Yasser was going to put his name forward, and he indicated he was having many conversations, and those first conversations were with his children. He's got young children, and then he was having conversations over the holidays. Have you heard about Yasser moving forward?
No, I know that he's interested. I haven't heard whether he's made a decision or not. And family it is your first conversation for any of the leadership hopefuls that are out there, and there are a few others. I know my caucus colleague Ted Hugh has put his name forward. There's also Nate Erskine-Smith, who's another MP from Toronto that is thinking about putting his name forward. Ted's sort of the one who's most confirmed, but it's good to see that level of interest, and I look forward to hearing who's going to join the race.
John, your perspective is so interesting. As you were chief of staff for Dalton McGuinty for so many years, and then obviously running and winning in this zone for so many years past, and then taking on the interim role. What makes a good leader of an Ontario party, particularly the Liberals?
I think what makes a good leader, whether it's the Ontario Liberal Party, any political party, or any leader in any organization, is the ability to listen. I think listening is one of the key skills that you need to have. You have to be prepared to work hard. In the case of running to be Ontario Liberal leader, often it's about rebuilding the party. But we're a big province. We're a huge province. There's 124 ridings. And so it's a lot of, if you think about trying to get to all those different places, it's a lot of work, and it's important for you to be there. So you have to be prepared to work hard. I think those are I think the two most important qualities.
Well, we'll be watching this race very, very closely. While I have you, I know it's no surprise to you, John, that the LRT is having a lot of challenges. We're still waiting to hear about some of this provincial funding. What do you think about the LRT? And, of course, we just had the inquiry report come out with some really damning information about this whole project. What are your thoughts?
Well, look, I think there needs to be better governance over these kinds of projects, and you have both the provincial and federal governments are large contributors, and I think they need to participate more in the oversight of these kinds of projects. Look, we're going to have to solve that problem of that we see right now, which is the arcing out, or whatever they call it. That seems to be happening after we have some freezing rain, inclement winter weather. They're going to have to solve that problem, and I think that's not just for the rail line that exists right now, but for the extensions which are currently being built. And as we move forward, we should be thoughtful and cautious as we move forward to phase 3, and how that's going to, how we can make sure that that we get better results than we've seen so far.
It certainly is. I mean, it's a 600-page report in full, I think over 600 pages. We know Toronto is moving towards some big projects like this. We're not completed here in Ottawa. I think personally this is going to be a bit of a Bible moving forward in terms of people looking at this to make sure they don't make the same mistakes. I'm hoping anyway. That's my hope.
Well, no, I agree. No, Ottawa's not immune. Like they're asking right now, there's some a request for an inquiry as to why the Eglinton crosstown in Toronto has taken so long, and there's concerns over the Ontario line, which is proposed. So, I think that if I read anything out of that report, is that there is a need for better oversight. Mm-hmm. And so I think that means ensuring that all the funding partners have a role and responsibility in that, and that we get the expertise and capacities we need to manage these projects. They're not easy projects. All major projects like this in rail have their ups and downs. But I think the citizens of Ottawa are right in being concerned about the performance of the light rail system up until now.
Speaking about projects that are not going very easy, we know the Greenbelt in the Toronto area has been talked about a lot in the legislature lately because some of those developers scooped up some of that land that was really worthless, paid hundreds of millions of dollars for it. We know Premier Ford and Minister Clark have indicated that they did not give any developer fair warning, and that's the wrong term for it, but any warning about that land becoming all of a sudden valuable. What are your thoughts, John?
Well, look, I think any reasonable person would say it has the stink of insider trading. How did people know to purchase these lands? I mean, they're spending millions and millions and millions of dollars to do this. And then, of course, the windfall that comes after that's been opened up is enormous as well, too. So I think it's the legitimate question for people to ask, how did they know? And even here in Ottawa, we had expansions of the urban boundary to the south and in the east, and in some other areas that the city didn't ask for, and some people really benefited from that as well too. And the question is, why did that happen if the city said we didn't want to do that? I think they're fair questions for people to ask. Why did some people get an advantage when others didn't? Because the other thing you have to remember is that land was purchased from someone who didn't have the same information that the purchaser had, and so I think that's unfair. I think people see the unfairness in that, but also it's the people's greenbelt. The reason we have a greenbelt is to, clean our air, clean our water, provide a legacy for our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren, and protect our environment. So it's the people's greenbelt. It's not the Premier's greenbelt to give away to his friends.
John, I appreciate your time today. We're reaching out to Minister Steve Clark to see if he'll come on and chat with us about that particular project. Looking forward to asking him some of those tough questions as well. Thank you so much, John.
Thanks a lot, Sam. Take care.
John Fraser, interim party leader of the Ontario Liberal Party and MPP for Ottawa South. As John indicated, March 3rd and 4th, they're going to be discussing on what the process is to get them a new leader. When we come back on City News and Rogers TV, we're going to be speaking with the winners of both the Dream Home for the CHEO Lottery as well as the 50-50. No, you won't want to miss it. Lock it in to City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
Yo. Yep. Okay, I'll be there.
I'm Carolyn King, and I'm a member of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and the creator of the Moccasin Identifier. Philip Cote, an artist in Toronto here, took and redrew real moccasins. We're starting over with the children. The idea is that they would research whose land their school is built on, near, or what treaty area they're in. And the educational kit that we have has all that information in there. And the children just, love it. My dream is that this province will be covered with moccasin identifiers within the next decade. And they will forever know whose land they're on. That's the goal. Educate and awareness with a nice, simple little program called the Moccasin Identifier.
Hi, my name's Ange. I'm from the Angelina Hunter Trio. We will be performing this week as part of Encore Ottawa 3, and we really hope that you enjoy our set.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Good morning, everyone. I know how frustrating it can be regarding this LRT. Councillor Glenn Gower, chair of the Transit Committee, is going to come up after the 10:30 news today. We're going to ask him some of those tough questions and get a sense of any updates from them as well in regards to these trains that have been very challenging since that freezing rain last Wednesday. But first, we want to have a little good news today. We want to have a conversation today with the winners of that beautiful dream home from CHEO, that great CHEO lottery that happens every year. Diane and Peter Bobain join me now. Hello, you two.
Yeah, good morning, Sam. Good morning.
I can't believe it. You are so awesome for winning this this dream home. Tell us how it all happened.
We're regular supporters of CHEO and have been buying their lottery tickets for several years now. And so luck of the draw.
and Peter, did you walk through the home prior to the big draw?
No, first time we were in the house was yesterday.
Okay, so tell me what that, because I've been in the home. I was walking around picking out my bedroom, by the way. So
yeah, that's okay. You can come home.
There you go. There you go.
Oh my God, it was amazing. Just fabulous, and we've done the virtual tour online several times. But you just never, especially us, we just never think that we'd be lucky enough. So just hadn't gone that next level to go visit the home, because we hate to get our hopes up and have them dashed. So. But yeah, it was amazing yesterday. The home is just lovely, just gorgeous.
It is absolutely stunning, and it's got a bit of a Paris theme to it. Peter, do you like that?
Yeah, it's very attractive, and it's nice. Houses we've had before have always been a little more North American, fairly plain style, so this is a big difference for us.
Absolutely. And Diane, do you have a favorite room?
Oh, the kitchen.
It is beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful.
And with with the open concept because that's what, I mean, we've got a small version now, but that's what we have. And so it's nice to have that carried through. And we were, last few years having a grandchild and everything, hoping for more space. So this is perfect, just a perfect opportunity.
Wow, that's amazing. It's so exciting. And when I walked in there for the very first time, it just, Tanya Collins, who's the designer, and of course it's a beautiful Minto home. She just does a gorgeous job of making it already feel like home. And Peter, what's your favorite room?
Oh, I'm not just a toss-up between the garage and the theater room.
I, honestly, you could live in that garage, Peter. Not that I'm suggesting it, but it is gorgeous.
It's kind of everything I've wanted to do. We have a smaller garage here, and I got some of the same cabinetry and stuff in my garage right now. That's what they have in the Minto home.
Wow, it's amazing. And Diane, when you sit down to watch your very first movie in that movie theater, what movie is it going to be?
Oh, it's probably going to be a romance for me.
Well, there you go, romance for you. And how about you, Peter? What are you watching on the big screen?
Well, I think we'll start off with Star Wars.
Oh, there you go. There you go. It'd be a great room for that, actually. And Diane, when we buy these lottery tickets, I buy every year as well, there is that hope of winning like you have done. But there's also, we know that it goes, towards such an incredible organization in this city supporting CHEO, our Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario. Have you any connection to CHEO prior to this?
Yeah, we do. Both our boys. We have two sons, and both of them, when they were little, needed the services of CHEO. Unfortunately, but good thing, but gladly, and everything worked out positive for us. So we're just so grateful for that. And despite our children, we've known many other families and friends, relatives that have needed CHEO support. So anything we can do, it's the gratification you get from helping. And, we so believe in many other charities as well, but CHEO is definitely at the top of our list.
Mm-hmm. Peter, take me to the second that you find out you've won this home. What was that second like?
Shock. We were actually sitting here last Thursday when they phoned, and we saw the phone come up. It was CHEO, and we were trying to figure, who do we know would be at CHEO right now be having issues, because our son was here and so our granddaughter was at daycare, so we weren't expecting it to be them. And then when we answered the phone and Steve told us we had won, it was just shock. And we're still just been trying to figure out all the stuff we got to deal with. And
yeah, we're still a little sleep deprived.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you've had any sleep, Diane. Will you sell the home you're currently in then and move in right away?
Yeah. Well, as soon as possible. But yes, actually, after this interview, we're meeting with our realtor.
Well, that's great. Well, I'm glad I sneaked in there before the realtor. That's good.
Oh, we really appreciate your attention. Anyway.
Oh, for sure. And Peter, obviously your son was there. How did you tell your other son?
Oh, he was there too. He was having breakfast. So the whole family was here and I quickly put Steve on speakerphone when I realized that it wasn't negative, because we were just so worried that it was, someone we knew that was at CHEO and needed support. And anyway, so, and when we realized it was Steve, and I said, can I please put you on speakerphone? Because I was just in a daze at that point.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, congratulations, Diane and Peter Beaubé, on the winners of the Dream of a Lifetime home. May you have a lifetime of love and happiness in that beautiful home.
Oh, thank you so much, Sam. We really appreciate your call.
Oh, absolutely. It's been my pleasure. And now we go to Ken Lockhart and Barbara Cowan, the winners of the 50-50 for CHEO. How are you two doing?
We're doing great, thank you.
Are you still sleep deprived like the winners of the home?
I don't know if we're sleep deprived, but the excitement is still there. It's finally starting to sink in.
Fantastic. Barbara, how much did you win?
We won $1.398.70 million.
That's amazing. You've got the number down, right?
I do.
That's fantastic. And Ken, how did you buy the ticket? Take me to why and how you bought the ticket.
We have been buying the CHEO tickets for years now. Normally I buy them the 3 for $250, and since they put the 50-50 on as an addition, I spent the extra 50 just to kind of complete the package. Say we've been doing that for years.
Well, that's amazing. Barbara, do you have a connection to CHEO in the past?
Yes, my son was there when he was a year old, and he was very well taken care of, and so were we.
So has it been a thank you every year then, Ken, when you buy those tickets? Is that your thank you back to CHEO?
You could say that it's a thank you. It's a thank you for all the work they do and supporting the children in this end of Ontario and whoever comes here. That's more what I wanted, is to make sure that the hospital can continue to function.
Mm-hmm. Barbara, any big plans for the $1.3 million?
Not a whole lot. We're seeing a financial advisor today, and we'd like to put a deck on our house and pay our car off. But other than that, right now, not too much.
Well, those are great plans, and congratulations. And I'm so happy that you had an opportunity to spend time with us here on City News and share the good news.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ken Lockhart and Barbara Cowan won over $1.3 million in the CHEO 50-50. That 50-50 has done incredible over the years. That was an addition to the Dream of a Lifetime lottery. There are still lots of prizes. So if you have tickets, make sure you check those tickets. You can head to the CHEO website and check those tickets. When we come back, Councillor Glenn Gower is going to be here. We're going to talk LRT. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20. We're on the line for $20.
On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Chef, I show you how to fill your freezer with 8 different meals for the next time you're in a pinch.
When an impaired driver killed my brother DJ, my life changed forever. During the pandemic, all of our lives changed, and many of us turned to alcohol and drugs to cope. As life returns to normal, the increase in substance use from COVID has lingered, and some police services report an increase in impaired driving that caused heartbreak and devastation. Now, more than ever, we need your commitment to never drive impaired and to encourage all of your family and friends to do the same. Together, we can save lives.
Hi, I'm Meg from AIM Fitness, and I'm here with my buddy Fit Finley. Join us every week for Fit Over 50. We'll take you through some low-impact and high-intensity workouts designed to improve your strength and your balance. All you'll need is a resistance band, some light hand weights, and also your water bottle and a sturdy chair. Tune in right here on Rogers TV and let us be part of your weekly routine.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Hi everybody, my name is Brian Aslan and I'm with the Commotions. We are performing Encore Ottawa 3 this week. Be sure to tune in.
One for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 101.1 everywhere.
It's Tuesday, January 10th. Good morning. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa, it is -9. In Smiths Falls, it is -8. And here's what's making news this hour. Ottawa's LRT might return to full service at some point today. Also, Transport in a memo to City Council saying they're working to remove the two immobilized trains on the tracks on track 2 this afternoon. And transit officials are also set to meet with RTM today for a full update on the status of the repairs and also to review a plan to safely return the trains to full service. We'll continue to monitor the situation with the Confederation line for you and bring you updates as it gets to us. A study is being launched into the causes behind Canada's chaotic holiday travel season. Transportation Committee MPs voted yesterday to invite representatives from Air Canada, WestJet, Sunwing and Via Rail to testify. In the lead up to Christmas Day, a winter storm swept across parts of the country, complicating travel plans for both providers and passengers during one of the busiest travel times of the year. The committee will begin its hearing on Thursday. It also plans to call on air passenger advocates and affected travelers. City News time is 10:32. I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, it has been a challenging start to 2023 for the LRT. We wanted to get caught up today with Glenn Gower, Chair of the Transit Committee, Councillor for Stittsville. Hello, Councillor.
Good morning.
I have to say, I think this is our third or fourth conversation since the new year. So you've been very responsive, and I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. I'm happy to be here, but hopefully after today, we won't be chatting for quite a while.
Okay, so let's talk about the latest update. We know last Wednesday the freezing rain hit the capital, and it hit that system hard. We know the trains haven't been operating really since then, majority of them. So talk to me about the update.
Okay, so the latest update is from 9:21 a.m. from OC Transpo, from Renee Amilcar, who's the general manager, and she says they anticipate full O-Train Line 1 service will resume later today. Now, there's no specifics on what time today, but it's a good piece of news, and it means that the repair work and the restoration work over the last 24 hours has gone very, very well. So there's still some work to be done today. They're going to be moving the remaining trains. There's 2 trains that are still stopped on track 2, and once they clear the track, clear the trains, they'll be testing the trains and the system to make sure it's reliable, and then they can reopen the service. So we're all hoping that resumes as quickly as possible.
Is this quicker than you anticipated, Councillor?
Well, it's very difficult to guess or to speculate on when service might resume. I mean, we saw last Friday that there was a setback in the planned work, but since Saturday, the work has been going according to plan, and the focus has always been just to get service restored as quickly as possible, because this is continuing to have a major impact on OC Transpo commuters, particularly for people who are coming in from the East End.
And what we do know as well is there was a big challenge yesterday for people that had to rely on the bus, that R1 route. Talk to me a little bit about how any of that was rectified for today.
Absolutely. So this is the R1 replacement buses, and we heard from a lot of customers, and I spoke to a number of my council colleagues yesterday about this situation. So the OC Transpo did adjust, so they added more buses today to help with the increase and passenger volume, so there were more buses running today. There was also a point at Herdman where there was more congestion or more capacity needed, so they were running extra replacement buses specifically from Herdman towards downtown to try to deal with that. So this morning, the replacement buses were running at 5 to 15 minute intervals depending on traffic and situation. So I hope that residents would have seen a better commute in from the East End this morning. From the West End on the trains were running every 5 minutes, and paratranspo service is running well today as well.
We spoke yesterday with Troy Charter. After our conversation with you, Troy joined us, Director of Operations, of course, for OC Transpo. He spoke about the fact that, the whole line wasn't affected. It was only a portion of it from an icing perspective. And he was talking about, meeting with obviously other representatives from our RTM, and all of those different pieces coming into play because it didn't affect the whole line. It only affected a portion. Do you have any information as to why that was only a portion of the system that was affected?
No, and it's one of the many questions that I have, and I know my fellow councillors have as well. I understand yesterday some of the root cause analysis work started, but so far we don't have those answers, and obviously we need to know what happened in order to prevent it from happening again and look at any short-term or long-term changes to the system that we need to make sure it's reliable in freezing rain.
And I know you obviously have lots of questions. All of your fellow councillors would have questions as well, along with Mayor Mark Sutcliffe. We know that transit meeting we spoke about yesterday, you indicated is in early February. Are you feeling any pressure to have one sooner than that, Councillor?
Well, it's something we've been talking about. I spoke with the mayor's office again this morning. Certainly, if there's a setback today and the outage lasts any longer than today, we're going to look at a way to get an update to council, so council can be asking some direct questions to OC Transpo. Now, OC Transpo staff are available to councillors 24/7 and have been. There's been some good communication and good suggestions back and forth and feedback from councillors, so that's good. We do have a Transit Commission meeting on February 9th, and this storm incident and the replacement buses, all of the issues around it will definitely be on the agenda. I want to make sure that we do give time for OC Transpo and RTM and the independent experts that have been brought in the time to do an investigation and to bring forward to us some constructive, meaningful updates and recommendations. I wish it didn't take this long, but when you're looking at major incidents to transportation, it does take some time to do that full investigation. Mm-hmm. And I think a month should be enough time to have some answers ready for commission and for council. And certainly we have lots of questions, and we'll be looking for those answers when we're able to meet.
Any sense of what this has cost the system in terms of dollars and cents, or is that work still to come?
That would be work still to come.
And any sense of helping out passengers and riders at this time? I know when there's been challenges in the past, there has been, foregoing of fares and giving people a little bit of a break on their pocketbook. Is there any talk of any of that, Councillor?
Well, yes, we have been discussing that because I know a number of residents have raised it, so definitely something we need to discuss. But the focus right now, ultimately, people want reliable transit service, and that's where the focus is right now for OC Transpo. Get the trains back up and running and understand what happened, what went wrong that led to this outage. We're in day 6 now, and make sure that these prolonged outages just do not happen. They're not acceptable. You always expect when you have an extreme weather event, a storm, freezing rain, you always expect to have some minor issues that can be resolved quickly, but a 6-day outage is just not acceptable.
Have you reached out to Councillor Alan Hubley? Of course, he was the chair of the Transit Committee for many, many years. Have you reached out to him to talk about this latest outage?
I've been in touch with Councillor Hubley, yes, and I think yesterday I spoke with about a dozen councillors, and we're sharing what we're seeing out there on the system. We're sharing ideas, and we're talking about some of the questions we have and information that we need. So there's a good dialogue happening between councillors right now, and between councillors and OC Transpo too. So this is the first, I'm a new transit chair, and so seeing how OC Transpo directly responds to these issues and seeing the communication, and there's a lot I'm seeing that's done well, and there's some good ideas from council colleagues on things that could be improved going forward. So I hate to, it's not a good situation, but some positive is I think there's been some good communication and collaboration amongst councillors and staff looking into how we improve the immediate situation for customers and how we make improvements going forward as well.
We know the contract to maintain this particular line has been, a big topic of discussion. The fact it's a 30-year contract. Sometimes, you think about a marriage isn't working and you get out of it. Is this a contract you have any thoughts about trying to maybe exit before we get any further?
Well, there's some ongoing court proceedings around the contract. At this point, it's I'm really focused this week in terms of getting the service back up and running. I going back, though, I did read through the report from the OLT Commission that came out last fall, and in the conclusion of his summary, he did point out that over the past, more recently, the system is showing signs of improvement. And I'll quote directly from the report because I pulled this out. Over time, structural problems can be resolved. And it's a matter of cooperation, of communication, and everyone working together and making sure they're putting the public interest first. And I think that's what we've got to be focused on. It's not something that's going to be solved overnight. But if we do keep on working together and working with the public interest first, that's, in the big picture, the route forward.
And the communication side is so key. It really is at the heart of everything here, because when people feel like they're not being communicated to, they get even more frustrated and we start making up stories in our minds as to why. And because we have this LRT inquiry report and we see that there hasn't always been transparency there, do you think since last Wednesday to this moment, do you feel there has been improvement in terms of communication, both to the media and to residents themselves?
Well, it has by no means been perfect, but I've seen an improvement since the last time we had a major outage back in the derailment in 2021. I've seen some definite improvements and changes. And I think also OC Transpo over the past 6 days has been responsive when there have been issues identified. This week on Monday, they added more communications for customers in response to some of the feedback we were getting. And I know on day one, there were some concerns about availability of spokespeople for the media and so on. And that's been something that's improved over the past 4 or 5 days as well. So it hasn't been a perfect response, but I've been pleased to see that OC Transpo is responding and adjusting and trying to improve operations as we go.
And Councillor, we understand some of those trains are running, but they're only test trains. Do you know anything more about that?
I'm not sure about that. I mean, I do know before they put a system back in service, they need to run some tests and inspections and ensure 100% safety before public service goes live. So that's the process that's underway today, and we'll be getting some more updates throughout the afternoon on when full service can resume for customers.
And what last words would you say to residents and riders as we head into this hopefully this fix of the LRT? What would you say to them in regards to their patience and really trusting this system?
Well, I know it's been a week of added stress, of frustration, of longer commutes to get to school, to get to work, to get to appointments. As counselors, none of us find this acceptable, and we are committed and dedicated to getting this right. We know that we have a long way to go to rebuild trust with customers, and we have a lot underway to do that. And we apologize for the major disruption to people's lives over the past week.
Appreciate your flexibility and the discussion today. Thank you, Councillor.
All right, take care.
Councillor Glenn Gower joining us today, Chair of the Transit Committee and Councillor representing Stittsville. Appreciate his time. We're following this story obviously very closely here on City News. Any news we hear, well, you'll hear it first right here. Lock it in, everyone, to City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
It's about sharing and caring. It's about doing and belonging. It's about living life to its fullest. And it's about laughing out loud. We are L'Arche Canada, and we're about witnessing and sharing the gifts of all people. Learn more about us today.
I'm Derek Fage, and I encourage you to join me each and every weekday at 2 p.m. for an edition of Daytime Ottawa. We will share with you some fabulous stories, inspirational stories, and of course, recipes from local chefs. We'll tell you about some wonderful musical performances, introduce you to local businesses and charities, and so much more. Join us here on Daytime Ottawa at 2 p.m. weekdays with repeats at 6 and 11 p.m.
Hey folks, it's me, Giovanni Patini, the host of the RTV quiz show, the hottest show on television. It's the hilarious quiz show where you, the viewers, play for valuable non-existent prizes. It's got great trivia, fun facts, and a lot of laughs, all blended together in a perfect cocktail of edutainment. So join us Wednesdays at 7:30 right here on Rogers TV. Nice.
Hi, my name's Ange. I'm from the Angelina Hunter Trio. We will be performing this week as part of Encore Ottawa 3, and we really hope that you enjoy our set.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, when I think back to 2022 and what I spoke about many, many times here on City News, it was Bill 124, especially regarding that provincial election. Heading into that provincial election, which happened on June the 2nd, we were hoping that Premier Doug Ford would repeal this bill. He has not done that. Things seem to be only getting worse. We wanted to speak with Morgan Hoffer today, immediate past president of the RNAO. How are you, Morgan?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us. We normally speak with Dr. Doris Grinspun, of course, the CEO of the Registered Nurses Association of Ontario. She's very passionate about this issue. My understanding is that Bill 124 is still causing a lot of problems with nurses in this country and in this province. Walk us through the latest, Morgan.
So Bill 124 continues to wreak havoc on nursing across Ontario. The real challenge with Bill 124 is that it only impacts people in Ontario. So it allows our nurses who are working here to not be covered by that legislation in other provinces where the compensation has been increased. So it's really been difficult for nurses working in Ontario who have had their wages capped at a 1% increase for the past 3 years while we've been in the middle of a global pandemic that definitely has impacted nursing, and we've seen a significant increase in the number of nurses that have left the profession, and Bill 124 has been a big part of that. It together with, it doesn't matter how much we improve the working conditions or how much we improve if we improve recruitment of nurses, if we can't improve retention through Bill 124, nothing will work.
If the Premier today said, okay, I'm going to repeal this bill, how quickly would things actually improve?
So So I think that would have a significant impact on morale right away. It would help nurses to feel like they really are valued and appreciated by this government. It would be more than just, lip service of nurses being great and being heroes and caring about nurses. It would demonstrate that public sector employees are valued. It will take some time for things to improve. So it takes time for nurses to become educated, to become registered. It will take still some time, but it would be a significant kind of wind in the sails to help potentially bring nurses back to Ontario and bring nurses back to who have left for other jobs back to working as nurses in Ontario.
So if the Premier did repeal this bill, what are nurses looking for? What pay increase are they wanting?
So pay to keep up with the pace of inflation is really what nurses want. If we look at the pay of and what the government was willing to pay physicians to work as nurse extenders during the pandemic, we're not asking for that amount of pay. We know that the government can provide it because they did provide it during the pandemic, but we're looking for wage increases that match at least the pace of inflation.
And Morgan, when we saw what happened with education workers, we've seen other people sort of battle with the province. Does that worry nurses at all that this bill obviously will, has been a challenge, but are they worried that it won't get repealed and the situation will only get worse?
I think banding together actually is probably our best option to have it, to have this bill. It's been repealed to stop the government from continuing to repeal the court decision of saying 124 is unconstitutional. So if getting more people on board and behind, we've had 30,000 people sign an action alert that RNAO put forward to say repeal Bill 124 and don't, stop saying that you're going to continue to fight this in court, that you are going to repeal that decision. So it is disappointing that other public sector employees have continued to have to fight this same fight with the government, but I feel hopeful that nurses will be able to kind of push this over the finish line and have it officially repealed, particularly with the new documents that have come forward saying from the government themselves that this has presented challenges in healthcare.
We've heard from other nursing professions that are nursing professionals that if Premier Ford and Health Minister Sylvia Jones spent 1 hour in an ER in the middle of the night, that they would repeal Bill 124 the very next morning. Do you agree with that, Morgan?
I would hope that they would. I think that it's really challenging, the working conditions that nurses are under right now, particularly in areas that can't close beds, like the emergency department. That really has the lack of nurses across the healthcare sector, particularly in hospital sector, but also in community sector, has really put a lot of pressure on our emergency departments. They are bursting at the seams. They already had a lot of pressure prior to the pandemic, prior to the significant increase we've seen in nursing shortages. And it's even more pressure now. I hear from my colleagues that work in the emergency department about how really disheartening it is and how they don't have the time to actually see and assess the patients that need them to assess them. I think if the Premier or the Minister of Health were really unwell and needed to be in the emergency department, I hope that doesn't happen to them, but they would really see what it's like in our healthcare system and experience what other patients and what Ontarians experience when they need to seek emergency health care.
We're speaking with Morgan Hoffarth, immediate past president of RNAO. Do you think safety of patients and the care of patients is in jeopardy at all because of this nursing shortage and the challenges that nurses are facing?
100% it is. If we're asking nurses who are at the bedside of patients, who are providing care to patients in the community to continue to do more and more with less resources, if we're asking them to work with half the staff that they normally have, of course patient safety is at risk. If you don't have the time to do the assessments and the interventions that patients need in order to make sure that their health is maintained, if you don't have time to provide that basic care that they need to prevent pressure injuries, for example, the health of Ontarians and their safety is at risk. Nurses are doing all that they can. So when you seek healthcare, I want you to know the nurse that's taking care of you is doing their very best to make sure that they prioritize the care that needs to be done. But they can't do everything. They can't do double the work that they were already doing. There are things that will be missed, and that does compromise patient safety.
What would you say to somebody that today is driving to maybe a local hospital here in the capital to go to their shift and they're thinking, I just can't do it one more day?
We need you. We need you to do it. And I know that it is hard, and I know that it's really demoralizing to not be able to provide the assessments, that to really provide both the art and science of nursing to the patients that you're taking care of. I know that that creates a significant burden and moral distress on people, but know that we are here fighting for you to have the working conditions that you deserve, the compensation that you deserve, and really that we all need to kind of stand together and support each other, and as the public, support our nurses and make sure that we are being, polite and respectful. I know that people who are seeking healthcare really are at a difficult point in their life, but by taking that out on the nurse that's doing their best to take care of you, it's not helping the situation. So to the nurses, we support you. We are you. Like I am at my workplace right now. I'm here working as a nurse, and we really need to all work together in order to help make some positive change. And I really do think that we will see changes coming, but it's going to take some time for the nurses right at the bedside to see that difference.
Appreciate your time today, Morgan. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Keep up the great work. Morgan Hoffart joining us today, immediate past president of the Registered Nurses Association of Ontario. Keep it kind, everyone. If you come in connection with a nurse today, make sure you thank them. Stay with us here on City News. We're going to be speaking about Canada-U.S. relations with former U.S. Ambassador Bruce Heyman here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20. We're on the line for $20.
On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Chef, I show you how to fill your freezer with 8 different meals for the next time you're in a pinch.
Everybody knows not to drink and drive, but some people still think it's okay to take drugs and drive. Police have the authority, the ability, and the tools to determine if drivers are impaired by legal or illegal drugs. And because drug-impaired drivers can pose just as great a risk as drunk drivers, they face the same penalties, like the loss of their driver's license, a criminal record, fines, and more. A message from the RCMP, the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police, and Arrive Alive, Drive Sober.
I'm Julian Armour from Music and Beyond. Join us for a new show this spring on Rogers called Music and Beyond Presents.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Hi everybody, my name is Brian Aslan and I'm with the Commotions. We are performing Encore Ottawa 3 this week. Be sure to tune in.
City News.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 101.1 FM in Smith Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 101.1 everywhere.
It's Tuesday, January 10th. Good morning. I am Damilola Onime. Right now in Ottawa, -9. In Smith Falls, it is -8. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Some good news might be on the way for transit riders in the city. OC Transport says work to remove the 2 immobilized trains on track 2 of the Confederation line should get underway at some point this afternoon, after which officials will inspect the tracks and the trains for safety and reliability. Now, once that work is complete, OC Transport says they can fully reopen the line and service on Line 1 will be fully restored. Now, amid the latest challenges with the Confederation line, one city councillor is advocating for a revamp of R1 bus service. City News reporter Chris Curries has the details.
When light rail goes down, R1 service gets initiated, but at its best, it means extra stops and extra time to get to your destination. So the councillor for Alta Vista would like to see some changes in the form of more parallel bus routes.
It's too long now for people to remember what routes were like in 2019 when they ran parallel bus service for those first couple weeks when the LRT was running. You know, people still knew they got on their old bus routes. Those routes don't exist anymore. But what is going to be the alternative if this keeps happening?
Marty Carr says if the trains go out, she wants residents to be able to get to their destination quickly and efficiently. And tells City News she'll be bringing the idea up at the next Transit Commission meeting in February. Chris Curries, City News.
With the weather forecast for Ottawa and the Valley, here is City News weather specialist Denise Andriachi.
-4 is the guaranteed high, but we hit that very early this morning. Our afternoon high will be around -7. Sun and cloud this afternoon for most of the Ottawa region. We may hang on to cloud cover in some sections. Some sunshine in Smiths Falls today, around -5 for a high, and will fall to -11 for a low. Tomorrow we have scattered flurries in the forecast, and we do have an active weather pattern setting up for the end of the work week. Today's afternoon high, -7.
City News time is 11:03. The World Bank is warning that the global economy is at risk of recession this year. In an annual report, the bank is slashing its forecast for global growth this year to 1.7%. That's down from its previous projection of 3%. If the forecast proves accurate, it would be the 3rd weakest annual expansion in 3 decades, behind the deep recessions that followed the 2008 global financial crisis and the 2020 pandemic outbreak. Meanwhile, the Golden Globes returns tonight after a 1-year hiatus. It's a 1-year edition for the award show as it tries to earn back its relevancy after an ethics and diversity scandal. Stars and studios alike boycotted last year's ceremony, and NBC opted not to televise it. At the time, the network said the Hollywood Foreign Press Association needed time to make meaningful reform. The Globes will broadcast tonight. You can catch the live stream on City TV. I am Damilola Onime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, we really enjoy catching up with Bruce Heyman, former U.S. ambassador. We wanted to start the year off right. Welcome to the show, Bruce.
Good to be back.
It's lovely to spend time with you. We know there's lots going on, obviously, in the United States, and last week was quite an interesting week, and it took 15 tries, but we finally have a speaker, right?
We finally have a speaker, which is, you know, it's going to be challenging for him to run his caucus because, you know, it now is set up that any small group of people can squeeze him. And so what we may not see in the public, because everybody's saying, oh my gosh, one vote can cause a vote to potentially take him out of his seat. The reality is, can you imagine the phone call the night before where they say, unless you give me this, I'm going to call for the vote tomorrow to remove you as speaker. And I have 5 votes to do it. And so, you know, you may see things being done the night before, the next morning, and you're going, why are you doing this? Mm-hmm. Well, why? Because, effectively he has a political gun to his head.
But isn't it going to be interesting, Bruce, to see what Kevin McCarthy does during this time? Because, nothing will get done if that's the case.
Well, look, here's the deal. We're basically at a point where we have a Democratic Senate, we have a Democratic president, and we have a Republican House. It may very well be very few things get done, but some things need to get done, and that is the funding of the U.S. government and making sure we pay our debts. And I think that's where the risk is for our country, is somehow the speaker's held hostage politically, and you don't get a budget bill passed through the House when we need the money to run the government, or you don't have a debt extension, and then we have a crisis moment that is just self-induced.
Well, the relationship between Canada and the U.S., it's had its moments of rockiness. It's had its moments of joy. Where do we sit now in your eye?
I think we're in really good shape. I mean, are there individual things that we need to work on and improve? Sure, but that's always the case. That's the case. Neighbors in a neighborhood where you're talking about just how you want to have the neighborhood. But in all reality, we went through the dark period of the Trump years, in which Donald Trump, personally threw insults and accusations directly at the Canadian people, your economy, the prime minister, the deputy prime minister, the foreign minister. I mean, it was a scary moment. And I'd love to say that won't come back ever again. But now that we've seen it, we know it's possible. It could. But here we are today with at least a refreshing dialogue, and we're more of like minds in terms of how we see the world and how we see democracy. And but we also recognize how fragile democracy is, and we can't take it for granted.
And then we had a third neighbor in. The U.S., Canadian, Mexico officials are meeting this week. That's called the Three Amigos Summit. Our Prime Minister arrived yesterday with his wife. And what kind of hopes do you have for this summit?
My hopes for this summit, and I was in Ottawa when the last summit was in Ottawa with President Obama and then President Peña Nieto of Mexico, and it was a early, new Prime Minister Trudeau, and I really know how important these meetings are, having sat in these meetings. It's important to develop a personal relationship, because when you want to have ask for something bigger, then it's so much easier when you have a personal relationship with somebody, as opposed to those years in the Trump years where there were no North American leadership summits, not in 17, 18, 19, or 20. And so my expectation is that now we have these three men having met last year, now meeting again in Mexico City, that they find, more commonality in terms of the relationship, but also can address privately some of the significant issues that are concerning to all three countries.
And what are those issues in your mind, Bruce?
So I think those issues are not in any particular order, because they're all deeply important. But migration and migration of people, especially through Mexico into the United States. Second, drug trafficking and drug cartels and the manufacturing and distribution of fentanyl in particular. Third would be any trade disagreements, but also opportunities for expansion. Fourth would be climate and thinking about what we're doing together to prepare ourselves for the next economy and the new economy. Fifth might be the region. When we think about Haiti, and the issues that are experienced there, and how the three of us might come together to help mitigate the problems there in Central America. I mean, there's a lot here that can be, elevated, but they're all pretty serious issues that we're dealing with right now.
When you think about your time as U.S. ambassador and spending time in the Capitol, and we obviously saw the Trump years, if you will, has there been progress between the two countries in any of those files?
I think so, and in particular, you have to look to the trade file and say we really worked hard in the Trump administration, but also the Democratic Congress, and then the three countries all coming together to update this, several decade old trade agreement in NAFTA and really brought it into the 21st century. And so we made great progress there. We also have made, I think, significant progress with regard to tackling the pandemic, as much as that was I think a start and stop and some difficult twists and turns to that as we were all trying to figure that out along the way, and our shared border. But we have new issues that have popped up that need to be tackled. The Nexus program is stalled, or at least not operating the way we'd like it to. We have some disagreements in our trade files that are now rising to dispute resolution. And so, look, it's always work in progress. We're big countries. We have a lot going on. It's never going to be perfect, but we're working together, and that's the important part.
Bruce, let me ask you, do you miss your role as ambassador here at the Capitol?
I miss being in Canada. I miss the Canadian people. I miss your culture. I miss, we traveled to every province and every territory. We have so many friends. So I do get back. COVID was, not good in travel, as we all know. So we had a long period of time of not being together. And I'm co-chair of the advisory board at the Canada Institute, the Wilson Center in Washington. So I've been very involved in Canadian-U.S., the file, as they say. But, dealing with the governments and doing all of that, I don't miss it, but I don't not miss it. Nice. I mean, there were times where things move very slow.
For sure. I completely understand that, for sure. Let me ask you this, Bruce. How influential do you think the Trump years were on Canada? Do you think that the influence from our neighbors to the south influenced what went on here? I think particularly regarding the so-called Freedom Convoy, a number of different pieces that have come out of the U.S. We know the January 6th insurrection, those types of incidents definitely impacted, obviously, Americans. But do you think that those impacted here in Canada?
I think it not only impacted Canada, but is, if you're the beacon of democracy in the world and the promotion of, call it democratic with a small d, liberal, small l, not parties, but democratic liberal values in the world, and then you change and you reduce your promotion of democracy and, in fact, threaten it. And those liberal values that we're used to on the right to vote and the rights of men and women and freedoms and all of the things that we have made such great progress, and you saw us backtracking on so many things, that, I think we've impacted a lot of countries. We just saw what happened in Brazil this week, and we see what's happening in other, what I would call more fragile democracies around the world. And so it's a warning that we're all susceptible to this. And that if you like democracy, you may not like every policy of your government, but if you like the democracy as a form of government, you've got to fight to preserve it. You can't just take it for granted. And so I do think it's had an impact, yes, on Canada. And I hope that the impact is that you realize how important democracy is and you don't take it for granted.
Beautifully said. Lovely way to end our conversation today. Thank you so much, Bruce, for spending time with us today.
Thank you, and look forward to in the future. Happy New Year, everyone, and may this be a healthy one.
Thank you so much. Bruce Heyman joining us today, former U.S. ambassador. We connect with him a few times a year, and I always look forward to it. When we come back, we're going to spend some time with one of the faculty of the medicine at the University of Ottawa, Dr. Marc-Andre Langlois. Stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Trivia time.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
Our ancestors came here from France to build a better life. We lived here happily for generations. Until the British decided they wanted our land. The men were called to a meeting and then imprisoned. They demanded we swear an oath to their king and took everything, regardless. We were forced from Acadie, the only home we knew. Mon Acadie n'existera plus.
From 1755 to 1763, over 10,000 Acadians were ripped from their homeland. Despite this, Acadian culture endures in Atlantic Canada.
Hi, my name's Ange. I'm from the Angelina Hunter Trio. We will be performing this week as part of Encore Ottawa 3, and we really hope that you enjoy our set.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
We're going to be joined by Sergeant Amy Gagnon just after the 11:30 news today to talk about the festival ride program and some of the results coming out of that. We're going to be speaking with Amy about that. We wanted to start today with Dr. Marc-Andre Langlois from the University of Ottawa, Faculty of Medicine. Hello, Doctor.
Good morning.
We have spoke about a lot of things in the last couple of years when it comes to healthcare, but I don't think I've spoken once about HIV. It seems to be off our radar, but you've put it back on our radar. Tell us why.
Because there's still no cure for HIV. HIV transmission and then disease, AIDS, is extremely well controlled by antiretroviral drugs, but there's still no cure for it. And the primary reason for that is that the virus, when it infects the cell, the virus can go latent, which means it can shut down. And if it shuts down, it can basically hide within our cell population. And therefore, it's extremely difficult to get rid of it. So what we've found here is one of the possible mechanisms through which the virus can go silent and latent.
So fascinating. So tell us where we go from here.
So there's a family of proteins. They're called ApoBec, and these ApoBec proteins have a dedicated function to protect us against retroviruses. So we know about HIV, but there are many other retroviruses out there in nature that can infect us. And the specific feature of retroviruses is that when they infect a cell, they insert their genetic material into the DNA of the infected cell. So therefore, there's a permanent modification there. And this modification can affect the function of that cell. It can affect how its genes are expressed. So retroviruses can potentially cause a lot of damage to how a cell works. So we have this family of proteins that are there to protect us. These proteins, what they do is that they can mutate retroviruses, so they'll cause mutations in their genome, basically inactivating them. But what we found here is that in some instances, these proteins can help or change the patterns of HIV integration in our genome. So I mentioned that the retroviruses can insert themselves in the genome. Well, these proteins that are supposed to protect us can also alter these profiles and favor the integration of HIV in regions of the genome that are less active, so more amenable to latency.
So do you think you've found a cure for HIV?
No, this is only one piece of the puzzle in understanding how latency works. Latency is somewhat the final frontier in HIV research. It is the reason why we cannot eradicate the virus. It's one of the reasons why we can't cure individuals infected with HIV. It's because the virus goes silent and goes into hiding. So if we can better understand the mechanisms through which the virus goes into hiding, we can then design targeted strategies to prevent that from happening. And this is what we're seeing here is we've identified a possible new way the virus goes into hiding, and now we can target that.
Well, that's fascinating. Let's stay in touch because I want to follow this journey. I love that this is being done right here in our city. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Dr. Marc-André Langlois, University of Ottawa, Faculty of Medicine. Appreciate his time today. Thank you so much. We wanted to speak a little bit today regarding what's happened with the festive ride program with Sergeant Amy Gagnon from Ottawa Police. Hello.
Good morning.
Walk me through the results of the ride program this Christmas.
Well, so our festive ride program started basically November 30th and ran all the way through January 5th. And so you had multiple different rides throughout the city. Then you also had our traffic officers and our frontline officers that also did some impaired driving enforcement. And what we saw was actually an increase from last year, which is disappointing. But we had 83 criminal charges, and out of those, 56 were due to alcohol, 10 were due to drugs, and there are 17 that were a refusal or failure to provide a sample.
So refusal to provide a sample, what does that, I mean, that's obviously within the law, but does that sort of infer that someone's been drinking and they don't want to share that?
Yeah, so when it comes to refusal, there are two different types of refusals, and some of it, one of them is roadside. So when you are stopped and the officer has suspicion and makes a demand that you provide a sample of roadside, and that's just one of our approved screening devices, and you refuse because a lawful demand was made, that's considered a refusal. Or the other one is when you've been arrested for impaired driving, or you've provided a sample into the roadside and it provided a fail. You're arrested and you're brought down to our cell block, and then you are then have to provide a second sample into our intoxilizer, or you have to submit to a drug recognition evaluation. And if you refuse either of those, that's what is considered a refusal.
And how did these numbers stack up, Sergeant, in returns to potentially the last couple of years?
So we've seen, if we look at last year, we had 57 charges for the same period, and the previous year was just over 60. So there is an increase. Now, we do understand we're coming out of COVID, and this was the first year where we actually had some nice family gatherings and office parties and such. So it is concerning that, you know, there might be some bad habits that have snuck in, and that people have maybe forgotten that impaired driving is actually, you know, it's a road safety issue, and it is a community issue because everyone uses our roads, whether they walk, they bike, they drive. We need our roads to get to wherever we're going. Mm-hmm. And that's the biggest concern. Is our goal is to keep our roads safe and to make sure that everyone can either get to work, get to see family, get home at the end of the day.
I do not understand why somebody with everything that we have at our disposal now, whether that be Uber or Lyft or calling somebody, everything we know about drinking and driving, why anybody gets behind the wheel and continues this kind of behavior. It just boggles my mind. I'll never get my mind around it, ever. Possibly part of it is because a number of years ago, someone, you know, close to me died because of drinking and driving. So I still feel that, I guess, from an emotional perspective.
Well, and you have a personal understanding of the damage it can cause. And, you know, and that's why we try and continuously remind people, you know what, you're planning your evening. You plan what you're going to wear, you plan where you're going, you plan the food, you plan the drink. Please plan how you're going to get home. Because we all know you have a drink, you have two, guess what happens? Your judgment's out the window. You're making decisions that you probably wouldn't have made a few drinks ago. Mm-hmm. So if you actually commit and have that plan in place, then it's kind of a fail-safe. You're going to keep yourself safe and everyone you care about around you as well.
Thanks for spending time with us today. Sergeant Amy Gagnon joins us here a lot from Ottawa Police Service, and I appreciate your time today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We've been following very closely the story, of course, about Bill 124. We just had a guest on talking about that from the Registered Nurses Association of Ontario. We've seen some news from one of our colleagues here, Richard Southern, our parliamentary Queen's Park reporter, I should say, talking about the Bill 124. And what he's just shared through Twitter is he asked about internal documents that acknowledged low wages and Bill 124, the impact that they've had on the ability to retain nurses. And what he's reporting is Minister Jones, this is the healthcare minister, says, and this is a quote, "We understand how important it is to make our healthcare providers are looked after," end quote. But did not directly address this story. We're going to be following this story closely here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20. We're on the line for $20.
On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Chef, I show you how to fill your freezer with 8 different meals for the next time you're in a pinch.
I'm Wendell Clark with a word about winning. We all know it takes a team effort in any sport and with any challenge. You can be a part of the winning team that shuts out impaired driving. Whether you're out on the town or just hanging out with friends, drink responsibly. Always have a plan for a safe ride home for yourself, your family, and your friends. You'll be helping to shut out impaired driving.
Visit ArriveAlive.org to find out more. Arrive Alive. Drive sober.
Do you have something to share? Let everyone know about your next meeting, your need for volunteers, or your fundraising event on the Rogers TV Community Billboard. Send us your words and we'll bring them to life on Rogers TV and RogersTV.com. When it's time to spread the word, Go to rogerstv.com to add your announcement to the community billboard.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Hi everybody, my name is Brian Aslan and I'm with the Commotions. We are performing Encore Ottawa 3 this week. Be sure to tune in.
One for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It's Tuesday, January 10th. Good morning. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa, mostly cloudy, -9. In Smiths Falls, it is -8. And here's what's making news this hour. Ottawa's LRT might return to full service at some point today. OC Transport, in a memo to City Council, says they're working to remove the 2 immobilized trains on track 2 this afternoon. And transit officials are also set to meet with RTM today for a full update on the status of the repairs and also to review a plan to safely return the trains to full service. We'll continue to monitor the situation with the Confederation line and bring you updates as we get it. Internal Ministry of Health documents reportedly acknowledge the government's wage restraint legislation and deteriorating working conditions have played a role in the province's healthcare staffing crisis. The CBC has obtained briefing materials prepared for Health Minister Sylvia Jones, which explicitly details pandemic-related burnout, concerns about Bill 124 and working conditions as the main challenges to ending staffing shortages. This document was part of a transition binder given to Jones as she stepped into her new role in the summer. They also say increasing the number of nurses and avoiding a higher rate of attrition are required to head off chronic shortages. City News time is 11:32. I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Sam Laprade Show continues on City News
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Thanks so much for tuning in on Rogers TV and City News. We appreciate it very much. Marty Carr joins us now, counselor for Ward 18 for Alta Vista. Hello, Marty.
Good morning.
Marty, I know one of the things you're very passionate about is food insecurity, and you wrote, an opinion piece about this. Why did you do this at this time?
Well, so with respect to the opinion piece, the Ottawa Citizen had reached out to all the new councillors and asked them if they wanted to write an op-ed on, their plans or something that was of interest to them that they wanted to get accomplished. And for me, I focused my piece just solely on the one topic, on food security, because it's something that I'm really, really passionate about. And I see a lot of opportunity in the future in light of what we've witnessed over the past couple of years in terms of the pandemic, which really, sort of laid bare some of these issues. We've got high inflation. So you've really, really seen an increase in terms of people needing to access food. And also at the same time, during the pandemic, there was a lot of folks that were really interested in, they had time, they were doing gardening, local food was of interest. But we also saw those threats to our supply chain that happened. You've seen a lot of shortages of goods, and in BC there was washout on the highway, and it really showed that how precarious our supply chain is. And so I really think it's timely to start looking at what we can do locally at this time.
And one of the ideas really is that, that shared meal preparation, that food sharing. We know that a lot of people are alone and feeling very vulnerable at this time. We definitely saw that through the pandemic. I think the spotlight, during the pandemic was one of the silver linings, realizing how challenging this is. And I think a lot of people, Marty, think that this isn't happening in the capital, when the reality is the food bank, for everybody that they serve, including all their members, could fill that Canadian Tire Centre twice for the amount of people that are using a food bank in this city. So the food sharing piece, talk to me a little bit about what your hopes are there.
Yeah, so I find that really fascinating because, well, first of all, people using the food bank, there's some people that need food that aren't using the food bank either, right? Like they're ashamed, they don't want to be seen doing it. But I found it really interesting to see that growth in those meal sharing during the pandemic. So, there's the formal piece, like organizations like the Mission with their food trucks. There was Cooking for a Cause. Unfortunately, they've had to fold due to, provincial funding has shut down. Food for Thought. Like, these guys are preparing meals and sending them out to people who need them, people that don't have access to a kitchen, people that maybe don't know how to cook, people that don't have a home, and but then there's also the informal side, and we really saw that in the pandemic. We saw people that were, cooking for people during the derecho when certain people had no electricity. The same thing with the convoy. Like, there was all these community groups that were organizing to make sure people were fed, and there's such a demand. And you mentioned that community aspect. That's what's so important, is it builds community as well. And I think there's a lot of work that can be done sort of on community kitchens and, meal preparation, and also, some of these skills that, some people have and others don't, like in terms of canning and preserving and sort of prolonging the life of food, because that's really important as well.
How will you take your passion, Councillor, for this subject and make sure that others around the table, around that council table, put this in a priority bucket for themselves?
Yeah, so I think what's really important is just, making sure that the city's funded to do this work. So food security is a really interesting piece because it's in so many different areas. So social services, our social services area, they're funding a lot of agencies to make sure that they can provide food. They provide funding through the food bank. They've provided funding for, Food for Thought, lots of the social services agencies. So there's that whole aspect, which is sort of like the short term. And then there's sort of, the longer term piece where, you've got folks in our planning department that are looking at, the official plan, and they say that this is going to be really important. Urban agriculture, it commits to it. And then there's sort of the overarching piece, Ottawa Public Health is, providing nutritious food is so important to them. But I think, advocating for a resource or resources where you sort of pull that piece all together, and whether it's a food charter or policy framework for food security, I think that's really important because, you've got the short term, you've got the midterm, you've got the long term, but there's so many impacts. It's, it's an economic issue, it's a social issue, it's an environmental, it spans so many different sectors. So I'd really like to advocate for sort of a centralized plan for how we tackle this.
Have you done research in other cities to see if this has been successful anywhere else, or is this meant to be a pilot here in this city?
Yeah, so there are other municipalities and in different provinces which have, food policy statements, food policy frameworks, which do have it a little bit more centralized. And certainly there's cities where, there's different innovations that are happening. Whether, it's simply, more space in cities for greenhouses and growing within city buildings, or if it's, ways to incentivize, local manufacturing and distribution, local business, more focus on farmers markets. Like, everybody's done something a little bit differently. So there's definitely work out there. I'm really inspired. I read an article last week in Quebec, and this is really the provincial government that facilitated this. Like, they're now able to grow 50% of their vegetables in greenhouses. It was in the paper last week. Like, that's amazing that we were able to do that in a winter province, right? Like, and think of the impact that has. It makes things more equitable. It shortens our supply chains. Like, right now you're seeing a little tiny head of iceberg lettuce that's been brought over the border from California, and it's about $6.50 right now in the grocery store. Like, we can have so much better alternatives to that.
Mm-hmm. It's certainly going to be interesting. We know that poverty and that universal sort of income has come top of mind during the pandemic as well. Is this something that you would push for at the federal level as part of this strategy and part of this work that you're doing?
Well, absolutely. I mean, the number one way to get rid of food insecurity is better funding and basic income. It's reducing poverty. Like, that's the solution to the overall food security issue. And, definitely, even within the city. There's a responsibility to fund these things, and there is a community and well-being plan. I don't have the name exactly right. We need to make sure that those initiatives are funded in order to be able to provide support to people, because it's the reduction of poverty. And I'll just mention, the federal government recently just announced that they're going to be consulting on a school lunch plan, and that's really important. We're the only G7 country that doesn't have a school lunch plan.
Oh, interesting. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, so, there's steps that can be made at every single level of government, but it's complex, right? So you've got multi-governments, multi-sectors, but I'm very hopeful that I'll be able to bring attention to this and get some traction going in how we address this.
Well, Councillor, we're definitely going to keep chatting about this important subject. Just while I have you, I wanted to ask about the LRT. We received a bit of an update today from your colleague, Councillor Glenn Gower, of course, Chair of the Transit Committee, indicating that those trains may be on the track today and running. How has this process been for you as a new councillor to sort of see inside the bowels, if you will, of these problems when they exist?
Yeah, so actually I was on the LRT, or not the LRT, the R1 yesterday. I typically try to come in by transit at least once a week, but I took the service yesterday, and it exposed some of the challenges that residents are facing, and I'm looking forward to getting back on it tomorrow to see if it's working. But yeah, definitely, and I'm one of the, as a transit taker, I made sure that I was on the Transit Commission, and got a lot of work ahead of us, and I really feel a lot of sympathy for the residents who've still dealing with this 3.5 years after we launched the LRT. This is not a ideal situation for anyone, and there's lots of work ahead.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. What would you say to residents who maybe have thrown their hands up after all of the different challenges and say, you know what, I'm not going to take transit. I'm going to find another way. It's going to cost me more money, and it's not going to be great for the environment, but I need to be at work on time. I can't do this anymore. What would you say to them?
At this point, I'm not going to be offering anything more than sympathies, just because this has been 3.5 years. People are really frustrated, and I'm a very optimistic person, and but for me to be sending a message that everything is going to be okay, like we just saw that we had another problem right at the time that students are going back to university and more federal public servants are returning to the office. So, and in the winter months as well. So I'm going to do my best. I didn't leave my career and run for office to not make a difference. And I'll be there at the Transit Commission asking questions and hoping for advocating for change. Transit was part of my platform, but at this point, I just want to let residents know that I'm very sympathetic to what they're doing and having to deal with, and I'll be taking transit as much as I can over the next few weeks.
And we know that Transit Commission meeting is February the 9th. Do you feel like that's a long time away? And would you prefer to see a meeting sooner to address some of these issues?
Yeah, so from my point of view, we got a lot of new people on transit. We're not the people that can solve the immediate issue. And right now, my interest is making sure that those OC's Transpo staff who are able to fix the current system, get residents to where they need to go right away. That is the most important thing. So I don't want to be taking away resources from OC Transpo to have them come into a meeting, because the transit commissioners, those of us on the Transit Commission, we're not engineers, we're not travel planners. So the focus of OC Transpo needs to be right now fixing the system, getting people where they need to go effectively and efficiently. So I've got a whole spiral notebook full of questions, full of things I've been wanting to do at the Transit Commission. Those things can wait. We need the system fixed now for our residents.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time today. Marty Carr joining us today, councillor for Alta Vista Ward. Appreciate the discussion on food insecurity as well as the LRT. Appreciate her time very much. When we come back, well, we're going to take a look back with James Powell from the Historical Society of Ottawa. Stay with us on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
I'm Derek Fage, and I encourage you to join me each and every weekday at 2 p.m. for an edition of Daytime Ottawa. We will share with you some fabulous stories, inspirational stories, and of course, recipes from local chefs. We'll tell you about some wonderful musical performances, introduce you to local businesses and charities, and so much more. Join us here on Daytime Ottawa at 2 p.m. weekdays with repeats at 6 and 11 p.m.
For 25 years, you've been helping to make our roads safer by doing the right thing. You've been the designated driver, you've stayed over, called home, you've called a cab or a friend, and planned ahead. Let's keep doing the right thing. Support sober driving by getting yourself and your friends home safely.
Do the right thing.
Visit arrivealive.org to find out more. Arrive Alive. Drive sober.
Once upon a time, in a nursery rhyme, there were 3 bears. 1, 2, 3 bears. And they went a-walking in the cool woods a-talk.
Rogers TV invites you to let your imagination roam as we present Ottawa storytellers. Each week, we'll present a collection of original creative stories and inspirations for children of all ages. Join us for Ottawa Storytellers on Rogers TV.
Hi, my name's Ange. I'm from the Angelina Hunter Trio. We will be performing this week as part of Encore Ottawa 3, and we really hope that you enjoy our set.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
I love to take a look back. I learn so much about this city every time I spend time with the one and only Ben Wise from the Historical Society of Ottawa. Hello, Ben.
Good morning, Sam.
Ben, I'm all riled up today because I understand we're going to be talking about battles.
Well, battles perhaps with exclamation marks. I'm going to talk about battles, but not the kind our listeners might be thinking of. So the first battle I'm going to talk about is the Battle of the Hat Pins. Have you ever heard of this battle, Sam?
No, I haven't.
Well, you're not alone, Sam. Well, one of the things I learned getting involved with the Historical Society of Ottawa is that there are some fascinating stories familiar to most of our city's francophones, but virtually unknown among us anglophones, and this is one of those stories.
Okay, tell us all about it.
Yeah, this battle took place 107 years ago right here in Ottawa. What happened was that in 1912, the government of Ontario decided to pass a law, Regulation 17, that outlawed French language education throughout the province. So, as you might guess, this did not go over well among families in heavily French-speaking areas of the province, such as Ottawa's own Lower Town neighborhood. As the resistance began, a couple of young sisters continued teaching the children in French, but in a secret location in Lower Town. Advocates started coming out of the woodwork, rallying for the cause, and the Le Droit newspaper was even founded specifically to battle Regulation 17. Now, when the outraged parents decided that enough was enough and it was time for the students to come out of hiding and return to learning French at the school, the province prepared to send in platoons of armed police. And this is what set the stage for the Battle of the Hatpins. When the provincial police showed up the next day, the armed troops found the school surrounded by about 80 mothers, armed with hatpins, rolling pins, brooms, and frying pans. And guess what? The police backed down. The mothers had successfully fended off the platoons of police in defense of their children's right to be educated in their mother tongue. And that happened on January the 17th, 1916.
Well, that's fascinating. Leave it to a mama bear, right?
A lot of mama bears.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a great story about French-Canadian history, but also about women in Ottawa's history. I love the story.
Absolutely.
The next battle I want to talk about was also waged in winter, but it was a battle waged on ice, the battle in 1905 for the Stanley Cup.
I love it.
Now, back in the days before the NHL, the Stanley Cup was a challenge trophy, which means the Cup would change hands several times in 1 year. The Governor General, Lord Stanley, and his family here in Ottawa had a lot to do with popularizing the new sport of hockey to begin with. His 4 sons started up a team called the Rideau Hall Rebels that played exhibition games, introducing the new sport around the province. They weren't called the Senators, but some of the members of the team were actual senators and members of Parliament. Anyway, by 1892, Lord Stanley decided there needed to be a trophy for hockey. So he had the Stanley Cup introduced at an awards dinner being held for Ottawa's champion hockey team at the time at the Russell House Hotel on Elgin Street. This trophy, the Stanley Cup, went back and forth so much, and Ottawa's teams were so strong that Ottawa, still to this day, holds the record for the highest total of Stanley Cup wins, second only to Montreal.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Now, one of those wins was in 1905, and that series started 118 years ago this week. The team that had decided to challenge Ottawa were the Dawson City Nuggets. Today, the population of Dawson City, I had to look it up, is barely over 1,000, but this was just after the heyday of the Klondike Gold Rush, so I guess folks from that small town had some pretty big ideas. And one of those ideas, apparently, was that they could wrestle the Stanley Cup away from Ottawa's hockey team. Sam, Dawson City's players had to travel over 4,000 miles to get here from the Yukon in December and January. Their 3-week trek had sections they had to do by sled, on foot, by bicycle, by boat, and by train. The whole team was exhausted. Even after resting for 2 days, after getting here, they still didn't stand a chance against Ottawa. But the Ottawa players and fans sure respected them for trying.
No kidding. Wow, that's incredible.
So the last kind of battle I'm going to talk about is the political kind. And that's what politics is. It's a battle for ideas. Back at the end of October, I talked about 2 Ottawa champions of city politics, Charlotte Whitten and Marion Dewar. And as I mentioned, the Historical Society of Ottawa would be featuring a debate in January where 2 speakers would battle it out to argue which of those 2 legendary Ottawa mayors, both amazing women, Marion Dewar or Charlotte Whitten, deserve to be recognized as Ottawa's most remarkable mayor of all time. Well, Sam, tomorrow's the big day. It'll be the Historical Society of Ottawa's first Speaker Series presentation of 2023, our 125th anniversary year, and it's going to take place at 1 p.m. at the Ottawa Public Library Auditorium at Metcalfe and Laurier.
Well, that's fantastic.
Our debaters are Robert Fox, former Chief of Staff to Marion Dewar, and Dave Mullington, author of 2 great books about Ottawa's mayors, including one about Charlotte Whitten, and Dave's also a longtime member of our society. So that's tomorrow at 1 p.m. But now I want to go back and talk a bit more about hockey, Sam.
Oh, I love it. Let's talk about hockey.
Okay. I mentioned that Ottawa holds the record for the most Stanley Cup wins in Ottawa history, second only to Montreal. My apologies to any Maple Leaf fans out there. But now I'm going to put you on the spot, Sam, with a test of your knowledge of Ottawa history. Are you ready for this?
I'm a little nervous, but go ahead, Ben.
Who was the Irish Catholic father of Confederation who was assassinated in the dead of night on Spark Street in 1868?
Oh, heavens, I have no idea.
He has a pub named after him on Spark Street.
McGuire.
McGee, you're so close.
McGee.
Darcy McGee.
I knew that.
I knew you knew that. Most people may not know, however, that if it wasn't for Darcy McGee, Ottawa probably would not hold that record for the second most Stanley Cup wins. After Confederation, Darcy McGee invited his brother John to come to Ottawa from Ireland to join Canada's new civil service. John McGee ended up as Canada's longest-serving clerk of the Privy Council. But more importantly, John's son, one-eyed Frank McGee, learned to play hockey in Ottawa and grew up to be the Ottawa team's top-scoring player. In the second game against Dawson City, one-eyed Frank McGee scored 14 times a record that still stands today, 8 of those goals in just 9 minutes.
Wow.
A decade later, when everyone was enlisting for the First World War, one-eyed Frank McGee had to fake the eye examination because he had lost an eye to a high stick at the beginning of his hockey career.
Oh, wow.
Sadly, McGee ended up getting killed in 1916 at the Battle of the Somme.
Oh, that's tragic. Tragic. You always make me think differently about this city. Now, I knew about Darcy McGee, but even, driving down Elgin and at Sparks there, I'll think about this conversation. And that's what I love about these times together every single week, Ben. I know your colleague James Powell is going to join us next week, and I'm looking forward to that as well.
Thank you so much, Sam.
Appreciate your time. Ben Wise joining us from the Historical Society of Ottawa. Today we talked about battles, which was fascinating to me. When we come back, it's going to be the battle at lunch. Matt Luloff's going to join us and Laura Peck's going to join us. We're going to be talking about, well, you guessed it, a little LRT. We're also going to talk about that Three Amigos Summit and what we hope to accomplish between U.S., Canada, and Mexico. Stay with us on Rogers TV and City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20. We're on the line for $20.
On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Chef, I show you how to fill your freezer with 8 different meals for the next time you're in a pinch.
Think it's okay to drive high? Think again. Drug-impaired driving is as illegal as drunk driving, and in Ontario, the penalties are the same. If police suspect you're driving under the influence of drugs of any kind, or a combination of drugs and alcohol, and you fail a roadside test, your license will be suspended immediately for up to 30 days. You'll pay a penalty of $198. And you can be charged with a criminal offense of impaired driving, the same as alcohol. Driving high is never okay.
Here we go. Hey, going back in, okay?
It's a new season of The New Fly Fisher on Rogers TV.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Hi everybody, my name is Brian Aslan and I'm with the Commotions. We are performing Encore Ottawa 3 this week. Be sure to tune in.
IWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 101.1 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 101.1 everywhere.
It's Tuesday, January 10th. Good afternoon. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa, -9, mostly cloudy. In Smiths Falls, it is -8. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Now, when the trains go down and replacement buses are called in, it causes a trickle-down effect on bus service. And one city councillor is calling for a new approach. City News reporter Chris Curris has the story.
It took Marty Carr 2 hours to get from Alta Vista to City Hall on Monday.
What I most need to understand is, whatever these problems are that keep happening with the trains, we need a better contingency plan, because I can tell you from being on the R1 yesterday, that's not it. It's too lengthy.
She'd like to see the return of some parallel bus routes, because if this keeps happening, there needs to be some sort of alternative. This, she says, would allow people to bypass the R1 completely and by extension take some of the crowds away. She tells City News it's a question she wants to ask at Transit Commission next month, of which she is a member. Chris Curry's City News.
With the weather forecast for Ottawa and the Valley, here is City News weather specialist Denise Andriachi.
Partly cloudy this morning, sun and cloud for the afternoon. Here in Smiths Falls, we'll hover around -5 for a daytime high, -7 in Ottawa. We hit the guaranteed high of -4 already very early this morning, because remember, yesterday was a mild day. Today's a little closer to seasonal. Same for tomorrow, highs near -6, scattered flurries, and then some late day snow up to 10 centimeters. Late day Thursday, Friday, an additional couple of centimeters possible. Then it looks like we start off the weekend with sun and cloud. The daytime afternoon high today, -7.
City News time is 12:01. Ontario's health minister was asked today about internal government documents that showed low wages, and Bill 124 is having a negative impact on the province's ability to retain nurses. City News reporter Richard Southern has the story.
Using the Freedom of Information Act, a number of news organizations have uncovered briefing documents for Health Minister Sylvia Jones. These government papers acknowledge that Bill 124, which capped nurses' annual wage increases at 1%, has been a contributing factor in the province's healthcare staffing issues. It's led to nurses leaving the profession. Health Minister Sylvia Jones asked about this today, and she didn't really directly address the story.
We understand how important it is to make sure that our healthcare providers are looked after. It is, frankly, why we did things like giving an additional $5,000 to full-time RNs working in the province of Ontario.
Critics are calling on the government to abandon its appeal against a court decision that threw out Bill 124, calling it unconstitutional. Richard Southern, City News.
And the Prime Minister and U.S. President are now meeting behind closed doors at the so-called Three Amigos Summit being held in Mexico City. This face-to-face is taking place ahead of the trilateral meeting between the leaders of Canada, Mexico and the U.S. City News Parliamentary reporter Cormac McSweeney has the story.
Sitting next to each other with flags in the background, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and U.S. President Joe Biden shared smiles to kickstart the meeting with opening remarks, while the Prime Minister discussed the war in Ukraine, supply chains, and economic resiliency in North America. President Biden had brought up Haiti and is expected to be pushing Canada to try and take a lead role in some sort of security force to try and stabilize that country. There's also an expectation of some progress or even a deal to resolve the Nexus dispute, which has basically halted processing of applications of the Trusted Traveler program. Bruce Heyman, a former American ambassador to Canada, tells us this summit isn't just about policy, it's also about building up a friendship with fellow leaders.
Because when you want to have ask for something bigger, then it's so much easier when you have a personal relationship with somebody.
This bilateral meeting is probably the most important one for Canada, since issues about migration over the Mexican-U.S. border may take a lot of the attention at the main summit. One former diplomat I spoke with is even speculating that President Biden may later today use the summit to announce a state visit to Canada. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Connecting you and your community. This is the Sam Laprade Show on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Okay, everyone, it is lunchtime here on City News. What are you hungry for today? Because we like feasting on some of these top stories of the day. And today we're joined by Councillor for Orleans East Cumberland, the one and only Matt Luloff. How are you, Matt?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Sam?
Fantastic. I'm still getting used to your ward name. It'll take me a while.
Me too. Orleans East Cumberland. It's a bit of a mouthful, but super glad to be representing the incredible people of Cumberland, that beautiful village.
Thank you so much for being here. And Laura Peck has pulled up a seat at the table today. Senior partner at Transform Leaders. Hello, Laura.
Happy New Year's.
Happy New Year to you, too. It certainly is great to have you here. Laura, we know it's no secret there's been some challenges with the LRT. So aside from the actual LRT and it not working, I want to talk about the communication side of this today. How have they done during this time in terms of communications? Have they met your sort of standard of communications, Laura?
I think that Renee Amilcar, I hope I'm saying the name correctly, has been doing a better job of what's going on. You can never over-communicate. You have to drive the communications message, especially in emergencies. You have to drive it over and over and over again. And strategic communications has got to be at the table. You've got to figure out, what do we do, what do we say, and then you employ all of the tactics, the digital communications, the social media, radio, TV, driving all the messages all the time. I actually rode the LRT, and a lot of people had headsets on, so I'm wondering, are they listening to books? Are they listening to music? How would they possibly know if there's an emergency? So we all have to get on board in this communications world.
Such an important point. It's one thing to communicate. It's another thing to make sure that people are hearing it. Matt Luloff, I know you've been hearing from residents in Orleans, East Cumberland, because so many people are having a hard time getting from your ward to downtown. It's taking people double, triple the amount of time. You've been a busy guy, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I mean, look, in the East End, we've got the highest ridership in the city, a massive contingent of public servants. And so, this latest incident is so frustrating for our transit users and Ottawa residents that are paying for this. I'm not just disappointed in the LRT issues and the replacement bus operations, but, like Laura said, the communications have not been satisfactory, and our residents deserve better. Yes, Renee is doing, what seems like her utmost at this point in time, but I think that rather than just giving us, blanket statements like we're going to be pulling from, X amount of routes, here's the numbers of the routes, so expect delays on them. We want to know, exactly which trips are being canceled, to pull in for R1. I think that level of granularity is important for people to be able to plan their commute in the morning because, if their 8:10 bus or their 6:45 bus is not going to be there, well, they need to know about it so they can plan their lives around it. And also, because the commute is taking so much longer, I got an email yesterday from a worker from the Ottawa Hospital, an essential worker from the Ottawa Hospital. The commute's been extended by about an hour and 15 minutes, and the bus isn't coming an hour and 15 minutes earlier. And so she's coming in late for work. And right now, our healthcare system is so strained that it's so important that we're making sure that we're at least providing a service that gets people to work on time. So, how can we possibly expect public servants to return to work and make use of public transit when we have such an unreliable system and poor communication? We're in our 4th year with LRT. I would have hoped by this point in the LRT evolution that they would understand how to winter-proof the system in a winter capital. And I expect staff right now to spare absolutely no resources in their work to restore service and make improvements to the system because enough's enough.
Enough is enough for sure. And Laura Peck, Councillor Luloff brings up such an important point there. I mean, this is just before the holidays. Mona Fortier, the minister, indicated that, those public servants are going to be going back to work to the downtown core, and they're going to be going there back to the office, 40 to 60% of the time. This would be a challenge if you're trying to balance all the things life brings at you, in terms of daycare. A lot of people have given up, things like after school care and those types of things. It's challenging for people, Laura.
Oh, for sure. It's going to be very, very challenging, and reorganizing your entire life is really what has to happen, and you have to have plan B. It's not enough to have plan A. So I do empathize with people because the expectation had been that the LRT would safely carry people to downtown offices. So again, I go back to my strategic communications and say, say that we all have to be keen listeners to the digital communications, radio, television, print become even more important in our lives. We have to be checking it like we check the time.
Absolutely. And I know how proud you are about being the chair again of Library, Councillor Luloff, and we know that other big project for downtown is that Sens Arena and everything that will bring. All of these challenges with the LRT, do you think that the leadership of the Ottawa Senators are thinking, are we building a rink where people are not going to reliably going to be able to get there when the puck drops at 7:00? Are people going to be, kind of upset that they've missed the beginning of a hockey game or other, a concert or something because the LRT couldn't get them there on time? Does that ever cross your mind, Councillor?
Of course, if you had asked me, 2.5 years ago, if I thought that we'd even be having this conversation at this point, I probably would have scoffed a little bit. But, given this, because we still don't know, we haven't been properly communicated to regarding what caused this, because there certainly wasn't enough ice buildup to have caused, such a catastrophic failure. So, I think it remains to be seen what the root cause of this issue is. I do have a meeting with the Ottawa Senators later on this week to discuss the proposal for a downtown arena, and I want to hear from them, how they're feeling about this. I do have, hope at this point. I would have said confidence 2.5 years ago that this can be sorted out on time, because how wonderful will it be, for a resident of Queenswood Heights, to be able to walk down to a station, hop on a single train and get dropped off, at the doorstep of a brand new arena to see our incredibly exciting Ottawa Senators play. I dream of being able to do that. The safety and the lack of temptation to partake or imbibe in a few too many drinks and then having to leave your car in Canada. Like, what a wonderful thing it will be to be able to travel safely and efficiently down to a station right beside a new arena. So I'm looking forward to hearing from them and to seeing what caused this current issue and how quickly they're going to be able to resolve it so it doesn't happen again.
Do you find, thank you for that, Councillor. Laura, do you find that when this particular incident happened, you were reflecting on the LRT inquiry report, which we received in November? I found myself sort of looking at this in a very different way because of everything we learned in that 600-page report. It certainly felt different this time because I was thinking, okay, here's all the things we know are wrong. Here's all the recommendations. Are they being implemented as quickly as possible in this particular instance? Did you find yourself doing the same?
Yeah, I would like to have like a report card or, as one who is, moving towards more and more taking public transit. I want to feel, it's like you said in your earlier question, can you get to the place on time? I cannot afford to burn away my client's time. I have to be there on time. Or are you going to say to yourself, well, report came out, not enough was done, so I still have to take my car. Gosh, what a waste that would be. So I do think that citizens have to have a reassurance that the problems are taken care of and that they're going to have a nice, safe trip and not sparks flying the whole way. And the big thing is that we have extremities of temperature. And so the LRT, there's got to be some way to fix the problems so that whether it's, double digits in deep freeze or in heat, we're going to be able to safely transport citizens from point A to point B.
Appreciate your time today. You're both going to join me again, which I'm so happy about. Laura Peck is going to stay with us, senior partner at Transform Leaders, and Matt Luloff's going to stay as well, counselor for Orleans East Cumberland. And I hope you're going to stay with us here on Rogers TV and City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
I did it. I need it.
Okay, here, I gave it.
And I am alive.
As an organ donor, you can save up to 8 lives and enhance the lives of 75 others. Please go to our website. Pledge a gift of life. You'll be glad you did.
We fought our way through Italy and then headed for Amsterdam, sweeping for Germans along the way. Our worst fear was to catch a bullet in these last hours of the war.
I was 15 when the Nazis invaded the Netherlands. More than 100,000 Dutch Jews never came home. Our men were put into forced labor. By 1945, we were starving. The food drops gave us hope. And then the Canadians came.
Before Amsterdam, I couldn't have explained why we were there, all those years away from home, but the Dutch showed us why it mattered.
Papa wanted me to bring some soldiers home to thank them personally, and that's when I first saw Wilf, and I invited him over that afternoon.
Marguerite Blaise married Lieutenant Wilf Gildersleeve. They moved to Vancouver, where they raised 8 children. Today, the Dutch still remember the Canadians who liberated them.
Hi, my name's Ange. I'm from the Angelina Hunter Trio. We will be performing this week as part of Encore Ottawa 3, and we really hope that you enjoy our set.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, it's lunchtime, everyone, and we're feasting on those top news stories of the day. Laura Peck joins us, senior partner at Transform Leaders, and Matt Luloff continuing the conversation as well, counselor for Orleans East Cumberland. We were talking about the LRT before we went for a short break there, Matt, and you had brought up the de-icing piece. And ironically, if you can believe it, 25 years ago, we were experiencing the ice storm, which was 10 times worse than the freezing rain we received last Wednesday. I'm even scared to put this out in the universe, but I can't imagine what a freezing rainstorm of 1998 would do on that system. Does that ever keep you up at night, Matt?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it certainly keeps me up at night when I, saw how difficult how difficult a time we had with our infrastructure following the derecho. We still have quite a bit of energy infrastructure that's suspended on wires and wooden posts, and seeing how the strain of the derecho, the kind of havoc that it wreaked on our infrastructure. It's so important that we continue to invest in resilient infrastructure, and I can only imagine what kind of damage that sort of ice storm would have caused both on our energy infrastructure, meaning the electricity that feeds both our grid and the system, but also to the infrastructure itself. It absolutely keeps me awake at night. I think that resilience in energy infrastructure, resilience in our infrastructure needs to continue to be top of mind.
And for those people that opted not to take the LRT and driving around this city, Laura, I don't know about you, but I'm hitting a lot of potholes. It just seems to be every year we face the same issues and cars are damaged. And I think the milder weather we've had this year, we're seeing those things kind of creep in a little bit earlier. Have you experienced that at all, Laura?
Oh, sure. I mean, we have a lot of potholes here, but I believe that the new mayor had committed some money or extra money to make sure that we have better road maintenance. So let's hope that this is a deliverable, because they cause such havoc on our vehicles, as well as they're an eyesore. So let's hope that gets cleaned up.
How many calls have you taken about potholes in your political career, Councillor Luloff?
It's got to be in the thousands, Sam, frankly. I mean, I'm the kind of guy who takes responsibility for these things, and, regularly travel across the city, in my role as the chair of a public library, or just going about my business with my family. And, if I hit one or see one, I pull over and fill out a service request and make sure that the city is aware of it. It's so important. I can remember two falls ago, this is a particularly stressful job, and so you have to take care of your mental health. And so I'd taken an afternoon off to go for a walk on the boardwalk at the Maribler Bog, and driving along Renault Road, hit a pothole so big that it broke my tire. Had to pull over and call CAA to come and tow my car away. It's so important that we maintain the infrastructure that we have, and seeing it in the sorry state that I have, and notice it a heck of a lot more now that I'm an elected official, is truly unbecoming of a G7 capital, and we need to ensure that we're taking care of our infrastructure properly. So I was glad to see that announcement from Mark Sutcliffe, and it mirrored the campaign commitments that I made in the last election as well.
Well, we'll certainly be following it closely, and it's only going to get worse, unfortunately, as we head towards spring. We know sort of March, April, it really becomes a big challenge as well. Laura, we've been following closely the Three Amigos Summit, where the leaders of course, Canada, the U.S., and Mexico get together to discuss the issues that affect all three countries. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Sophie Gregoire, of course, landed in Mexico yesterday. What are your sort of top thoughts on what they'll be talking about? What's top of mind for you?
Well, as I listened to your newscast on City News Ottawa, there's a hint of an announcement of a state visit to Canada. And of course, that would be major if President Biden announces his visit. But also, they have big issues like the climate, clean energy, the supply chain, Nexus. I just received my Nexus card. I have not traveled to the United States in a long time. I used to go there a couple of times a month. And so these are very important issues, because in this Western Hemisphere, what affects America affects us. Also, we've been asked as Canadians to take over on Haiti, a very important thing to look after our fellow people in this world. So, yeah, there's big issues to be discussed.
And Councillor Luloff, what would be top of mind for you? What do you want to see them talking about?
It's a bit of a bad joke. A populist, a centrist, and a left-leaning politician walk into a bar. I'm not quite sure that the punchline is very funny, but I'd be hoping to see discussion points on energy exports. We have to be a good partner to our European partners. Removing outstanding trade barriers and tariffs in North America, which is driving up the cost of goods, and which is exacerbated by our supply chain issues that Laura mentioned. North American defense, for me, is top of mind with the Russian aggression. We're certainly not that far away from them here in North America, just over the Bering Strait, and we share an Arctic with the Russians, and continued North American support for the plight in Ukraine. And these are things that would be top of mind for me if I was, sitting at that table.
Yes, excellent suggestions there. Just a little bit of a fun question for you, Laura. If President Biden was to visit Canada, we know that former President Barack Obama brought some Canada cookies home for his girls. What would President Biden bring back to Washington for his family, do you think, if he was visiting Ottawa?
Well, they all love to go to Beaver Tails, and I must admit, they are good. They are really, really good. I hope that if President Biden comes, that he brings Jill Biden with him. She's an educator and certainly a person who delivers a lot of oomph and support, and love to see her too. So I think that they would love it here in Ottawa. I guess we should do some research. Have they been to Ottawa? I don't know the answer to that question.
Mm-hmm. I don't either, to be honest with you. We will look into that for sure. Councillor Luloff, what's President Biden bringing back to Washington if he visits the capital?
Well, quite selfishly, I think that he should be bringing back a can of Wagon from Stray Dog Brewing Company in Orleans, or perhaps visiting a great local record shop like Vertical Records up on Bank Street and picking up some local music. We've got some great local artists here in Ottawa, and bringing that back to the United States wouldn't be so bad, I think.
Well, that's fantastic, and I always like to end our lunch with a bit of a fun question. I'm going to do two today because that was a fun question. But Laura, let me ask you this: what are you watching on TV that you would recommend that maybe we watch as well?
Well, because I'm so interested in strategic communications, I'm watching this CNN special on Giuliani, because he went from being considered one of the best communicators. He was the mayor that everybody wished they had, and look at how he has fallen. So I'm interested in how he pivoted downwards. And of course, I got to admit, I binge watch anything to do with Meghan and Harry. I'm very interested in that because, again, their strategic communications is they say that they want privacy, but yet they've accepted $100 million to do all of these TV programs plus books, you name it, and it's all about his family. Mm-hmm. So, I'm interested in that.
What are you binge watching these days, Matt?
I'm more binge reading or binge listening to audiobooks. I like to jam them into every single nook and cranny of my day. The Ottawa Public Library has got a massive collection of audiobooks, and I'm reading Andrew Roberts' Churchill right now, an incredible biography of Winston Churchill, with all of the turmoil in Europe right now. It's been said that those who fail to study history are doomed to repeat it. So I've really been embroiled in that. But if you're gonna hold me to binge watching a television show, I really enjoyed 1899. It's a pretty interesting. You don't really know while it's happening, but a great science fiction show, and Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities is a pretty interesting trip too.
Well, that's awesome. I'm in the middle of, and it was a recommendation by our news director here, Mark Day. I'm in the middle of watching Pepsi Where's My Jet, and I am loving it. Thanks so much for spending time with us today on Lunch with Sam. Laura Peck was here at the table, senior partner at Transform Leaders, and Councillor Matt Luloff for Orleans East Cumberland. Appreciate their time today. When we come back, it's the Business Lunch. Lock it in to Rogers TV and City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20. We're on the line for $20.
On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Chef, I show you how to fill your freezer with 8 different meals for the next time you're in a pinch.
After a night out with your friends, not having a plan for a safe ride home can leave you in a bad spot. You could end up riding in a police car, an ambulance, or a hearse. These unplanned modes of transportation can be a costly choice and do not take you home. Your plan could include a designated driver, a taxi, or public transit. Drink responsibly, choose your ride, and have a plan for a safe ride home.
Visit arrivealive.org to find out more.
At Celebrate Ottawa, we love showing you something a little different. We showcase remarkable people highlighting the city's diversity in arts, culture, sports, and nature. We will show you features that prove Ottawa is a vibrant and exciting city. We'll entertain you and we'll even teach you new things. Join me, your host, Lila Grine, as we explore and celebrate Ottawa.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Hi everybody, my name is Brian Aslan and I'm with the Commotions. We are performing Encore Ottawa 3 this week. Be sure to tune in.
Local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 101.1 everywhere.
It's Tuesday, January 10th. Good afternoon. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa and in Smith Falls, -8. And here's what's making news this hour. The City News Snowsuit Fund 50/50 has now surpassed $500,000, which means the jackpot winners portion of the fund is now over $250,000. The other half will be used to purchase snowsuits for children in the Ottawa area in need of one this winter. And the Snowsuit Fund draw will take place a week from Friday. That's January 20th at 8:30 a.m. You can still buy a ticket for between $10 to $100 at snowsuitfund5050.com or by texting the word money to 555 to have a donation link sent directly to your mobile phone. And about a quarter of those who have to fill out the vacant property tax form have already done so. The city says it has received 82,000 filings as of yesterday. A second direct mailing campaign has been launched to nudge the remaining 75% of Ottawa residents who are yet to file their vacant property tax. To do so, the deadline to fill out the form is the middle of March. City News Time is 12:32. I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It is the business lunch, everyone. Thank you so much for spending time with us. We wanted to get caught up today with Michelle Roux from Ecobia. Hi, Michelle. How are you?
I'm pretty good. How are you doing?
Good, good. We've been thinking a lot about the downtown Ottawa revitalization project, Michelle, because this is the time that, we want to make sure that those businesses are supported. What are you doing at Ecobia to try and help this take place?
Well, what we're trying to do right now is look at what other cities are doing. Some members, some BIAs that are downtown are part of the Downtown Revitalization Task Force, which MP Naxi is leading. And, we're basically advocating that we want people downtown 24/7. And we're not going to let go of that.
And the whole idea that Minister Mona Fortier was inviting public servants to go back to the office, back to the downtown core. Was this such an important piece for you, Michelle, in terms of the next steps forward?
I'd say it's part of the piece. So, what Ottawa has is a singular large employer in our downtown who occupies most of the space. And so obviously when you don't have public servants or people who would normally be there, not be there for the past almost 3 years, then obviously it's going to impact. What we're looking for is a more diverse mix of what we have downtown. So, which would be in any normal course where you have a proper mix of people living and working and a variety of sources and services downtown, so that, you build a more resilient downtown core for the businesses, but also for people who live there.
Does the LRT challenges that we've seen recently and the ongoing challenges concern you at all, Michelle, about, heading back to the office and trying to revitalize that downtown core?
It does concern me, as an employer, and knowing that I have staff that actually have to go to business sites. So, you have to make sure that people get to the right place and they get there on time. So that costs either business or their staff to compensate for the LRT not being around. So that's problematic. So it's problematic in bringing commuters, but also the businesses that are downtown bringing their own staff in as well.
And is there a formula for what would make the downtown revitalization successful? Is it not only on the, because a lot of federal workers are saying, well, it's not my problem that the downtown core is facing this challenge. Why should I have to take a bus from Orleans to go downtown? I'm not going to buy my lunch there. I'm bringing my lunch. I mean, so that's one piece of it. But what are the other sort of components to make this successful?
And they're right. It's not necessarily the public servants. It's just the fact that there's people missing. And so, the component is what can we do to bring people there, and what are other cities doing? And of course, we know that our entire nation is in a housing crisis. Ottawa's declared a housing crisis before the pandemic, and downtown has a majority of office, business, and federal. Well, actually, the federal is the dominant. And so what it would take is definitely reinventing what is downtown, who is occupying downtown. And it would be wonderful to see that reinvention result in people being there 24/7. So of course that does mean more people living downtown. This is happening in other cities, and it's revitalizing other cities. The Chicago Loop, I'm looking at that right now, and Calgary, where they're starting to convert buildings. And so where you have people there all the time in a healthy mix, that's certainly very good for business.
Absolutely. What are the barriers, do you think, Michelle, to getting us there?
I would say, from what I've been hearing and seeing, is the cost. It's not an easy thing. This is not easy work. And so cost and commitment, and there has to be, support from all levels of government to make it happen, because, it does cost money to obviously develop and to convert areas entirely. So it takes that investment from all levels of government to make it happen.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Who has to be at the table?
I would say the Treasury Board, because they do occupy the majority of buildings that we're talking about in the space. I would say obviously City of Ottawa, local MPs, and obviously the provincial government as well. And then we have the real estate owners, and I mean, there's so many people. Right now on the task force, you have such a great variety, people from social services, people who represent Indigenous communities, and so we need to maintain that a wide variety of people are there, but also the people in the room who can move things forward and make that plan.
Because you're right, the social services piece sort of caught my ear there, because I think it's one thing to bring businesses and get business owners all excited, but if they turn around and they know that there's a social services problem, and people are finding themselves on the streets and dealing with addiction and mental health issues, it's not a full community then, right? We're dealing in silos again.
Exactly, and when we're talking about a downtown revitalization and people are talking about housing, well, what about recreation centers? What about support centers? What about, making it more? What about bringing more larger businesses to support the people who already live there, hardware stores and things like that. So it's not just a one stream, convert things to housing. And we look at places like, and this happened in Chicago where, and it actually happened in Canada North. So you've got Nokia who's committed to building residential for their staff. And I've heard about that happening with Google in downtown Chicago for their staff, converting a building to support people living in that building. So I don't think it all falls on the shoulders of one entity to change, but it's certainly a lot of hands in the pot.
For sure. Yeah, well, it definitely, it takes everyone to pull together. It's not just and that was my point of talking about it a little bit, fleshing it out a bit more, because I think a lot of federal public servants are feeling the pressure on them to help. But this, they are just one piece of it, an important piece, but just one piece. Michelle, I know we're going to speak a lot in 2023. I appreciate you joining us here on the Business Lunch on City News. All the best for 2023.
Thanks, and to you as well.
Thank you. Michelle Grew joining us today. She is the leader of Acobia. Appreciate her time today. When we come back, there's a tiki bar. Yeah, here in Ottawa. Stay with us here on City News. We're going to learn all about it.
And Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
I'm Derek Fage, and I encourage you to join me each and every weekday at 2 p.m. for an edition of Daytime Ottawa. We will share with you some fabulous stories, inspirational stories, and of course, recipes from local chefs. We'll tell you about some wonderful musical performances, introduce you to local businesses and charities, and so much more. Join us here on Daytime Ottawa at 2 p.m. weekdays with repeats at 6 and 11 p.m.
Summer days, summer nights, lots of things to do, places to go, and people to see. If you're having a few drinks, be sure to plan ahead and get home safely. We don't want to pick you up. Drinking drivers risk injuries to themselves and others and take chances with their license, their jobs, and their future. Remember what's at stake and choose your ride, whether you're the driver, the passenger, or the party host. Thanks for supporting sober driving. I hope we never meet.
Visit arrivealive.org to find out more.
Hi, I'm Meg from AIM Fitness, and I'm here with my buddy Fit Finley. Join us every week for Fit Over 50. We'll take you through some low-impact and high-intensity workouts designed to improve your strength and your balance. All you'll need is a resistance band, some light hand weights, and also your water bottle and a sturdy chair. Tune in right here on Rogers TV and let us be part of your weekly routine.
Hi, my name's Ange. I'm from the Angelina Hunter Trio. We will be performing this week as part of Encore Ottawa 3, and we really hope that you enjoy our set.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, I've got some exciting news, everyone. On the Business Lunch, we talk about all things business. Well, we're going to talk about all things Tiki Bar with Manny Gubaconda. Hello, Manny.
Hello.
Hi, tell me all about your Tiki Bar.
Okay, so this Tiki Bar, honestly speaking, so we wanted to create a more tropical vibe, which is more of what do you say? We actually constructed a pirate theme bar, which is like a pirate theme. How do I clearly tell this?
Is it
maybe? Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, you were trying to kind of convey to people that maybe they were somewhere else than chilly Ottawa through the Tiki Bar, trying to create something special for them.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, we actually created some pirate experience, if a pirate has a den for himself, how would he create a den for himself? We added some tropical drinks, which would make that place some exotic tropical drinks.
Amazing. And whereabouts, what's it called?
The bar, it's called Poa Tiki Bar.
Okay, and where are you located, Manny?
We are on Dalhousie.
Okay, you're right downtown in the heart of it.
Yes, so the exact address would be 281A Dalhousie Street.
Fantastic. And how did you come up with this idea?
So honestly speaking, so not only me, I have a partner in this business here. So my partner, he's a very good creative artist, and he himself, so I wanted always to start a business, and my partner has this creative idea, so bringing in out of the world experiences. He's an artist also.
Wow.
Yeah, so
That's
my
amazing.
partner brought this idea to me, and I was really interested in this idea. So I joined them, I teamed them up, and we built everything from the scratch in the bar. Whatever you, whenever you guys come in and see, everything was built by us,
Wow.
everything.
Oh, I can't wait to come in. So when the place is hopping, who's there? Who's enjoying the Tiki Bar?
Sorry, can you come again?
Who are your clientele? Who's visiting?
So honestly, we are right on Dalhousie, right beside all the government offices. So I expect all the after work people to come in for a couple drinks, and then maybe later from 8 I expect I'm seeing all the different crowds of people. I'm seeing students, I'm seeing working professionals. I'm seeing some special Tiki fans coming around from Ottawa who didn't have a place to enjoy this Tiki experience. Yeah, I'm pretty much getting all the clientele right now.
Well, that's fantastic. What's your favorite drink, Manny?
Oh, when it comes to me, I love the Mai Tai, personally.
Okay. Well, that's exciting.
We're doing some exotic drinks. We do some drinks in a real bong.
Wow, okay.
Which literally gets your adrenaline to try that when you see that in a different table. When you walk in and someone's having that smoking pirate, it's called the smoking pirate.
Okay, that's fantastic. Well, this business lunch is turning into the liquid lunch. This is fantastic. I said the business lunch is turning into the liquid lunch today. It's great to hear all about your Tiki Bar. I hope we've inspired someone to visit you, Manny. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Sam.
Manny Gubaconda joining us today from the Tiki Bar, Poa Tiki Bar, and of course that is located on Dalhousie. We appreciate that very much. Have you been skiing? Well, we wanted to get caught up today with the owner of Ski Vorlage, Alex Guberi. How are you, Alex?
I'm good.
Alex, there's not a lot of snow that God has created right now. Are you creating snow?
Yes, we are. Mother Nature was not very good with us this year, but we are producing snow as we speak.
Okay, so tell us what this ski season has been like for you, Alex.
Actually, that's a tricky question because as a new owner and I'm officially not a skier. I don't have any full experience in the ski area. I'm mostly outdoor and mountain bike enthusiastic, so I am coming in this season learning. I got the past owner that's still on board with me and showing me his old tricks and making sure everything runs smooth. So, but from my understanding, it's a hard start for winter season.
It's certainly interesting because this time of year, especially over the holidays, a lot of people sort of work their whole sort of holidays around skiing. Did you find people were disappointed this year, or did you still see it busy?
It was busy when we were able to open between like the rain and major storms. So people were still attending and coming at the hill. People seemed happy to be present, but definitely like the amount of people that came in, if we look at the entire 2 weeks, was lower than a typical full 2 weeks business. So, but while people were here, they were enjoying themselves and very happy.
It's certainly a real highlight, especially up at Ski Vorlage. Very, very popular place to be. For a guy that doesn't ski, why did you buy a ski place?
That's a good question. Actually, it's a very, very old project and dream I had. It was in my mind for about 20 years. I've always looked at ski hills and asked me why do they only ran 3 to 4 months a year, and all that land, all that infrastructure is not used all the like year round. So my idea came up at that point about in 2002 while I was working at Gatineau Park, and it's always been just sitting in my head. As a experienced mountain biker, I've always looked at ski hill, ski facility as a very good place to build and construct like a mountain bike park. So my image of a ski hill, I think I don't look at it the same way as a skier, like a full alpine skier. Although by knowing that we need to pursue and give the winter time is important. Like I definitely will continue in accommodating skiers, alpine skiers for the winter season, but I look at the center and the land as much as a year-round operation, and how can we use the land to make sure that everything runs smoothly and we can offer as maximum services to the client.
Well, that's amazing, Alex. I hope everything goes well year-round for you, and I'm hoping for a bit more snow from the heavens for you. Thank you so much for your time today.
No problem. Thank you.
Alex Gabri joining us today, owner of Ski Vorlage. The ski season has definitely been a tricky one for sure. Speaking about tricky times, we're heading to Queen's Park to speak with the one and only Richard Southern. How are you, Richard?
Sam, Happy New Year. I'm more about the après ski than the ski itself. You'll find me in the lodge at the bottom of the hill.
And I would be right there with you, my friend. Absolutely. Let's talk about Queen's Park and what's happening. Bill 124. This is a bill we've talked about over and over again. Talk about some developments that's happened today.
Right. I mean, so for those who don't know, this is the Ford government legislation. It's been in place for a few years, and it capped nurses' wages at just 1% a year. And there's been a lot of talk over the years from nurses and from others saying, hey, this is causing nurses to leave the profession, right? I mean, you got the COVID coming along, and then you had this, basically a salary cut with inflation, and many nurses were leaving the profession. The Ford government had long said, Sam, no, that's not happening. But in the last few days, a number of news organizations used the Freedom of Information Act to obtain internal Ford government documents that showed, indeed, the government agreed that these low nurses' wages were leading to the staffing issues we've been seeing in hospitals, were leading and are leading to nurses leaving the profession. Just today, Health Minister Sylvia Jones was asked about this. She kind of sidestepped the question but said, we're always here to support our nurses. She referenced the $5,000 one-time payment that the government made to nurses last year, but again, didn't really directly address this. It is, perhaps I would think, has the government back on its heels. I mean, here it is, this controversial bill, directly leading to some extent to the situation we've been seeing in emergency rooms. Remember, Sam, a judge overturned this bill 2 months ago, calling it unconstitutional. But the Ford government is appealing that, so it does remain in place. So that's kind of where we stand with this interesting story right now.
And it's really interesting on the heels of what's happened with education workers and really battling with the province and what happened there. This is another group that's looking to, to ensure that they're not sort of tied up in this only a 1%, pay hike, especially when inflation is through the roof, Richard.
100%. And Bill 124 was interesting because it capped some public sector wage increases like nurses, but didn't cap police wage increases. They've seen big wage hikes. So the rationale between why the government was picking some groups and not others has really never been made clear.
Richard, sorry to interrupt you, Richard. We're just having some trouble with your line. We're just going to get Richard on the line there. We just have some sort of technical issue there. But Richard Southern was just indicating that Bill 124, it capped nurses' wages, but it didn't cap police wages, which is a bit bizarre. So we're going to see if we can get Richard Southern back on the line and continue that conversation. But Bill 124, top of mind. We know Health Minister Sylvia Jones today sidestepping a question that she was asked regarding the findings of the low wages and Bill 124 having an impact on the ability to retain nurses. We've heard over and over again from so many nursing professionals, as well as the Registered Nurses Association of Ontario, about how challenging it's been to retain nurses. And of course, Richard, you and I have been speaking with Dr. Doris Grinspun about this particular issue. She's the CEO, of course, of the Registered Nurses Association of Ontario. Very passionate about this issue. I mean, she has come on and spoke about Bill 124 in the middle of the pandemic, that nurses weren't seeing any pay increases, I should say. It has been challenging. And Dr. Doris Grinspun, Richard, you and I have spoke with her a lot. She's very passionate about getting this bill repealed. Would you agree, Richard?
I need to take my phone company to appeal. Sorry about that. Look, yeah, the nurses, they want this overturned, and they want to recoup some of the back losses, the back pay here, Sam. And the fact I was saying before I got interrupted there, the fact that the health minister allegedly knew that this legislation was leading to this terrible hospital crunch we've been seeing, yet said otherwise in public, that's potentially scandalous. So this is a big story that's brewing here, Sam.
For sure. And when asked if there was a health crisis, Richard, and I think you were one of the reporters that asked her that, she said there's no health crisis here. Nothing to see here, folks.
Right. Look, I'll say this. The situation we've seen in Ontario is playing out in hospitals all over North America, and the government has said that, and I think there's truth to that. But you have these extenuating circumstances, this Bill 124, that's potentially making the situation worse. The opposition critics at Queen's Park have been saying you can't stand up there and say that everything is hunky-dory or that this is normal, because it's not normal to be capping nurses' wages, especially during a pandemic.
Absolutely. Always appreciate your time. Richard Southern, our Queen's Park reporter, my colleague at City News, appreciate his time. Appreciate you joining us today on Rogers TV and City News. We're so glad